Chapter 1067. At this time, Niefeibai slashed out a terrifying sword light. It tore through the vast sky, and everything in the surroundings seemed to have entered a world of ice and snow. A huge ice cicada appeared in front of everyone's eyes, and pounced towards Yishiwen. The range of ice and snow instantly swept out. Niefeibai was already in a killing frenzy. He didn't care about Yi Qianqian, whom he had coveted a lot. After all, Yi Qianqian was nothing compared to him. A bloodlight flew out of Yishiwen's body, and transformed into an ancient mirror with a demon drawn on it. It enveloped Yi Qianqian, and a curtain of light hung down, and blocked the ice and snow outside. Yi Qianqian's eyes flashed. She looked at Yishiwen, but didn't say anything. She just clenched her tender and white little hands tightly. Yishiwen didn't panic in the face of Niefeibai's sudden eruption. It seemed as if he had already considered it. His body continued to spurt out sword energy, and formed a storm of sword energy around his body. Niefeibai had condensed all the power in his body, and slashed out with his sword. It was terrifying to look at. That ice cicada seemed capable of freezing the entire world. Yishiwen retreated a few steps. He raised his wrist, and the iron sword in his hand instantly shot out. The iron sword cut through the vast sky. The might of an earth-level weapon was vividly manifested at this time. Fast. 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 Yishiwen's sword seemed to have no other characteristics. If there was any characteristic, then it would be speed. That ice cicada was originally on the offensive side. It opened its big mouth, and wanted to swallow Yishiwen, and crush him with the sword light. However, Yishiwen was the one who took the initiative to attack when they were actually fighting. His sword directly sank into that ice cicada, and a terrifying cold air instantly froze Yishiwen's arm. It seemed as if his whole body would be frozen. However, it was blown away by the endless waves of divinity before it could crawl over the back of Yishiwen's hand. It was unable to freeze him. Clang! The sword light in Yishiwen's hand suddenly twisted into a fierce brilliance, and instantly shattered the ice cicada. However, this also gave Niefeibai time to escape. Although this attack couldn't kill Yishiwen as he had hoped, it had still allowed him to completely escape. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and kill this bastard! At this moment, Niefeibai hurriedly roared out. Those experts that were following behind the two of them were brought over by him. All of them were experts from their respective factions. Within the Southern Sea region, they were considered as first-rate experts. These experts promptly rushed towards Yishiwen as they heard him. However, Hao Tsang didn't seem to have heard them. He remained motionless. Damn it, Hao Tsang, are you rebelling? You're dead. Wait till I kill this brat. I'll make you pay the price. Seeing that Hao Tsang, who was the strongest among them, was not moving at all, Niefeibai immediately shouted in anger. He was not stupid. At this moment, how could he not understand that Hao Tsang was already disloyal? The anger in his heart was burning unceasingly. He was thinking of thousands of ways to deal with Hao Tsang. As long as he could escape, he would definitely convince his elder brother to exterminate this Sky Lightning Sea region and let him die a tragic death. Break free? Hao Tsang's face was expressionless. However, he sneered in his heart. Since he had already decided to reap the benefits when the Sandpiper and the Clam were fighting, he had already decided to kill Hao Tsang. Even if Hao Tsang could escape from Yishiwen's hands, he would definitely not be able to escape from Yishiwen's attack. Yishiwen, you must be careful of Hao Tsang. Look at him. He's not even willing to come over to help. He must be thinking of reaping the benefits when the Sandpiper and the Clam are fighting. Yemo reminded. He was currently protecting Yi Qianqian and was not part of the battle. Therefore, he could see the situation clearly at this moment. That's for the best. It saves me the trouble of dealing with him. Yishiwen didn't care. If you want to reap the benefits, you must have the strength to do so. Yishiwen had acted as a fisherman many times in the past. However, he had always been hiding in the dark at that time. Hao Tsang had openly revealed his purpose. So, it was simply impossible for him to plot against Yishiwen. Moreover, Yi Shiwen was confident that even if the two of them attacked together, it would not be a problem. It would just be a little more effort. Facing these Southern Sea experts who were rushing over, Yi Shiwen did not panic. He tapped his toes and his body was like a swimming dragon. In an instant, he charged into the group of people and actually ignored Niefeibai for the time being. Puchi! A sword light exploded and a flower of blood bloomed on the throat of a Southern Sea expert in the half-step law phase realm intermediate stage. His life was rapidly cut off. That expert's eyes were still wide open and he couldn't believe it. Even if a half-step law phase realm intermediate stage expert wasn't considered the top in the Super Sea region, he was still a powerful expert in other sea regions. Even those half-step law phase late stage experts wouldn't be able to kill him easily. They definitely wouldn't be like Yi Shiwen, who cut off his life with one sword strike. Puchi! Puchi! With every flower of blood that bloomed, there would be an expert directly dying. At this moment, Niefeibai couldn't remain calm. Originally, he thought that he could rely on his numbers to trap Yi Shiwen and create the conditions for him to kill Yi Shiwen. Who knew that in just a short period of time, he had already lost more than half of his subordinates. He wasn't a match for Yi Shiwen at all. On the contrary, he felt that he was simply here to die. He could only let Qingzi take action. His body shook and an ice armor actually appeared on his body. The endless cold air covered his body and greatly increased his defense. The snow-white armor emitted a frightening cold air, causing his hair to be stained with some white snow. He looked like a snow god of war. Immediately after, he waved his sword and released cold air, joining the encirclement of Yi Shiwen. Once Ice Cicada appears, the world will be shocked. Endless snowflakes splashed out from the tip of his sword and accompanied by the sword light of his long sword. The snowflakes shrouded Yi Shiwen in an exceptionally terrifying manner. Yi Shiwen didn't panic at all. He was at ease amidst so many experts. His long sword prevented the water from splashing through his guard and the sword light protected him from top to bottom. The sword light that splashed out from time to time could behead an unguarded expert of the Southern Sea region. Everything happened in an instant. Hao Tsung was still watching the battle from the sky at this time. He was slightly shaken when he saw Yi Shiwen's bravery and ferocity. In fact, he even doubted whether it was right for him not to join in and help. According to the current situation, Niefeibai was definitely not Yi Shiwen's opponent. However, whether he could suppress Yi Shiwen in the end was also a problem. The so-called when the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits was based on the fact that both of them were injured. However, looking at Yi Shiwen's appearance, it didn't seem that both of them were injured. On the contrary, Yi Shiwen was suppressing Niefeibai. If the sandpiper and the clam couldn't fight and both of them were injured, then how could he, the fisherman, benefit from it? However, this thought only appeared for a moment and was suppressed by him. He was extremely confident in his own confidence. "Burial sword!" Yi Shiwen shouted loudly and the sword light instantly swept out. It split into sword chi which filled the sky and attacked in all directions. Puchi! 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 The Southern Sea region experts didn't even have the time to scream. Their hearts were pierced by the sword chi and died on the spot. Even Niefeibai barely relied on the shield's protection to block the sword chi. He didn't die on the spot. Even so, he was in a sorry state. At this time, he finally understood that the guy in front of him who he didn't take seriously previously was the truly horrifying one. He was ridiculously strong. Was a Transcendent Realm 9th level able to defeat a half-step law phase late expert like him? Wasn't he truly horrifying and ridiculously strong? However, just as he was about to escape, Yi Shiwen's sword had already arrived in front of him. The iron sword cut across the vast sky, and instantly arrived in front of him like a bolt of lightning. It instantly shattered all of his defenses, and even that shield couldn't completely protect him. Boom! The sword light exploded on his body and completely burst out. Suddenly, his chest was a bloody mess. No one knew how many internal organs were injured. As he continuously coughed out blood, he even coughed out some internal organ fragments. It was obvious how severe his injuries were. If he didn't have that shield, he wouldn't just have his internal organs shattered. His entire body would have been cleaved in half. He let out a loud roar, and the strength of his body continued to increase. His real elemental energy burst to the extreme in an instant, and instantly deflected Yi Shiwen's incoming sword light. Then, his figure directly turned into a streamer, and rushed towards Hao Tsung. He didn't expect Hao Tsung to save him. From the moment Hao Tsung didn't make a move, he already knew that Hao Tsung had ulterior motives. Perhaps for Hao Tsung, his actions were understandable. However, for Hao Tsung, it was like a dog he raised betrayed him. For Yi Shiwen, Hao Tsung, who was previously attentive to him, was just like a dog. He would attack wherever he pointed. Now that this dog had betrayed him, it made him extremely furious. He probably wouldn't understand why Hao Tsung wanted to kill Yi Qianqian. It was because of his greed. He was simply trying to divert the trouble to Yi Shiwen. He had no way to deal with Yi Shiwen. Therefore, he wanted to divert Yi Shiwen to Hao Tsung's side. Then, these two people would fight each other. He swore that if he could escape, he would destroy this damned Sky Thundersea region. These damned fellows must all die. Just as his figure flew to Hao Tsung's side, he saw that Hao Tsung, who had been standing calmly all along, suddenly made a move. Endless lightning power suddenly gathered on his fist. Boom! A fist suddenly pierced through the vast sky and suddenly blasted into Niefeibai's body. The terrifying fist pressure instantly blasted through Niefeibai's body. You! Niefeibai felt that the vitality in his body was rapidly fading away. His eyes began to blur. He never dreamed that he would die in Hao Tsung's hands instead of Yi Shiwen's. Chapter 1068. Niefeibai probably didn't expect that he would die in the hands of Hao Tsung in the end, and not in the hands of Yi Shiwen as he had previously thought. Such a ruthless heart, such a sinister method. You won't have a good ending. My brother will avenge me. After he said this last sentence, he completely breathed his last. At the same time, the life card in his body also shattered immediately. It was not strange for important disciples of these giants to have such a life card. Once the life card shattered, it meant death. Even if they were thousands of miles away, the people of the sect would know immediately. Even Yi Shiwen sighed slightly. He was really ambitious. No wonder Niefeibai couldn't beat him in playing tricks. Although he didn't know the reason for the internal strife between them, Niefeibai was someone from the Super Sea region. For many experts in the Endless Sea region, the Super Sea region was the ruler of the entire Endless Sea region. It was the overlord. There were countless experts in the sect, and there were many experts who had surpassed the law manifestation realm. For the people in the Endless Sea region, it was an existence that couldn't be offended. Moreover, Niefeibai was probably a disciple of a top giant even in the Southern Sea region. This kind of giant could easily destroy a medium-sized sea region without any pressure. Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid because he didn't have a foothold. He was a loner. If he encountered any trouble, he could just leave. Although he might lack the support of the higher-ups of the sect or family, he didn't have to worry about their revenge. It was hard to say whether they could find him or not. What was there to be afraid of? However, this person actually dared to kill Niefeibai. What did this mean? Either his brain was stuck in the door, and he planned to fight against the Southern Sea region, or he was already prepared to kill him. Right now, there were only Yi Shiwen and Hao Tsung left. If one of them died, then this secret would remain a secret forever. As long as they didn't say anything, then no one would know. It had to be said that Hao Tsung was more calculative than his appearance. In Yi Shiwen's opinion, Lin Fenghua was already a scheming and black-bellied person. However, although Lin Fenghua seemed to have disguised himself well, he couldn't escape Yi Shiwen's eyes. On the contrary, Hao Tsung had always been tyrannical and cruel. So, Yi Shiwen had neglected his scheming. Perhaps, he was even more scheming than Lin Fenghua. In this world that was full of unimaginable dangers, how could he have suppressed Lin Fenghua's wily and circumspect subordinate if he was merely an uncouth man? It looked like he had underestimated the people of the world. I didn't expect you to actually kill him. Aren't you afraid that the experts of the Southern Sea region will find trouble with you? Yishuan indifferently said. The more powerful a colossus was, the more they would protect their own people. This was the same everywhere, because if they did not protect their own people, then how could they have the cohesiveness of the sects, let alone make them die for the sections? At the level of the Supersea region, the overlords were completely different from the vanishing shadow poisonous crocodile clan in the flourished Cloud Sea region. In the Supersea region, the overlords were all sects and forces, not just a single sea race clan, just like many human clans. A clan, even if there were experts and geniuses, how many people could there be? In fact, there weren't many, especially when compared to the entire world. It was even more insignificant. Compared to the family clans, the sect had a natural advantage. Therefore, in the Supersea region, the majority of the overlords were sections. Of course, not all of them were like this. There were also some races with extraordinary talents. They existed and dominated the world with their entire race. For example, the legendary dragon race lived on Dragon Island. There was also the legendary phoenix in the ancient Phoenix domain. They were all different. Now that Nyafebai's life token was broken, it wouldn't be long before those experts of the Southern Sea region would swarm over. At that time, it would be a disaster for the entire Sky Thunder Sea region. It doesn't matter. They will know soon. Nyafebai died in your hands. At most, I was just an incompetent guard. Hao Tsung smiled at Yishuan, revealing a cruel smile. For him, this kind of thing was a piece of cake. Yishuan didn't deny it because although Nyafebai was finally killed by Hao Tsung, he wouldn't be killed by Hao Tsung so easily if Yishuan didn't chase after him. It was not 100% accurate to say that Nyafebai died in Yishuan's hands, but it was not an exaggeration. Yishuan didn't intend to deny it. Isn't he your partner? Why is there an internal conflict? Yishuan just asked faintly. He seemed to have regarded Yishuan as a dead man. Even after seeing Yishuan's combat power just now, he still thought so. Was there anything to avoid in front of a dead man? At least, Yishuan didn't think so. It's because of that bitch. He tried to encroach on that bitch. However, that bitch is mine. She's my dual cultivation furnace. Who does he think he is? He actually dared to encroach on my things. Hao Tsung said somewhat cruelly. He was slightly agitated when he mentioned Yi Qianqian. However, I still have to thank you for this. I thought that you and that bitch had been killed by that blood beast. In the end, you're still alive and well. You won't be able to understand this feeling of regaining what you lost. Yishuan only understood now. It turned out that he had fallen out because of Yi Qianqian. It wasn't that Yishuan didn't know that Yi Qianqian possessed the 9-yin origin body. It was just that he didn't care much about it. However, although he didn't care much about it, it was obvious that there weren't only one or two people who cared about it. Even Hao Tsung, who was a scheming and ambitious person who knew how to endure, didn't hesitate to fall out with Nyafebai because of Yi Qianqian. It could be seen that the 9-yin origin body was a great temptation for them. In other words, it was an opportunity for them to improve quickly. For them, it was extremely important. The two of them were conversing like two old friends. It seemed as if they didn't care about the bloody scene in front of them. The two of them weren't enemies, but two best friends. However, the vigilance in the hearts of the two of them had never been reduced. It might be good to regain what you lost. However, if you lose it again after gaining it, then it wouldn't be so wonderful, would it? Yishuan faintly smiled. Hao Tsing's words had given him some inspiration. In fact, it was a huge inspiration on how to deal with this matter. He didn't care about what the people of the Southern Sea region thought because he didn't have a foothold. At worst, he could just leave. As long as he was careful, he would be able to avoid it. However, he would still have to face the pursuit of the experts of the Southern Sea region. However, it was different now. In other words, if Hao Tsung died, then this crime would fall on Hao Tsung's head. Yishuan would be able to escape smoothly. No one would know of his existence. Even if the people of the Sky Thunder Sea region knew that they had come out, they would only know that they had come to hunt for blood beasts. They wouldn't know of the existence of the two of them. they could completely escape smoothly. This idea was exactly the same as Hao Tsung's. However, they were completely in the dark. Therefore, they didn't need to worry too much. After hearing Yishuan's words, Hao Tsung's expression immediately turned cold. All right, those people of the Southern Sea region will soon receive the news and come over. I still have to hurry to set up the scene. Therefore, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. You are still so calm now. It's probably because you think that you are invincible after killing Niefei Bai. Let me tell you, I am not trash like Niefei Bai. Half a year ago, you were crushed by me and had to flee. Half a year later, it will be the same. Hao Tsung didn't have the patience to continue talking to Yishuan like this. The inner yuan on his body began to surge, and all the yuan qi of the universe began to faintly show signs of forming a world. This was the fundamental sign of an expert who was about to reach the transcendence realm. This was enough to prove that, in terms of strength, Hao Tsung had indeed improved by leaps and bounds compared to half a year ago. Even Niefei Bai would not be a match for him. If it wasn't for the Southern Sea behind him, he would not need to be so submissive, and he would be able to stand above everyone else. Yishuan's expression also changed slightly. It wasn't because he was afraid. It was because he didn't expect that Hao Tsung's cultivation had actually grown to such a level. Compared to half a year ago, there was a huge improvement. It could even be said that there was no comparison between the two. Your cultivation has actually reached such a level. No wonder you dared to watch and didn't make a move just now. You were planning to be the fisherman to profit from the fight. You really have some skills. Yishuan's expression became slightly dignified as he said, Have you also seen through my intention? However, it's useless. In the face of true strength, all schemes and tricks are useless. Whether the sandpiper and the clam will profit from the fight or not, it all depends on my powerful strength. With this slut as my furnace, my cultivation will soon reach the law manifestation realm. At that time, I will be a real big shot. Even if the people of the Southern Sea region suspect me, they won't dare to touch me easily. Hao Tsung said insolently. It seemed as if the outcome had already been decided. You're right. In the face of true strength, all schemes and tricks are useless. However, it's a pity that I don't think that you're the party with absolute strength. Yishuan sneered as he said. Yishuan didn't plan to continue talking with him. He was right. After Niefei Bai's life plate shattered, the people of the Southern Sea region would soon receive the news. A disciple who could possess a life plate would probably have a very important position in the entire Southern Sea region. Moreover, when he heard Niefei Bai mention his brother, he felt a sense of crisis shrouding his heart. Swish! Yishuan made his move. Chapter 1069. Perhaps you've concealed your strength, and that's enough for you to reap the benefits. However, do you think that's my true strength? Yishuan sneered. His sword light shot out like a bullet. Its speed was incomparably fast, and it enveloped Hao Tsung in an instant. A tyrannical aura swept out in an instant, and the outline of law talismans appeared in the sky. It was Yishuan's understanding of Tao. Hao Tsung was indeed a strong opponent. Therefore, Yishuan used a more powerful strength than the one he used against Niefei Bai. The aura on his body was more tyrannical than before. The sword light weaved a sword net in midair, and it enveloped Hao Tsung. Yishuan didn't flinch even when facing Hao Tsung's tyrannical strength. This sword directly slashed through the heaven and earth. Countless blood qi was stirred up, and it began to roll crazily like boiling water. Numerous cracks also appeared in the sky. It was the scene of the blood qi collapsing, and it looked exceptionally terrifying. How can he be so strong? At this time, even Hao Tsung's complexion suddenly changed. Initially, he had thought that Yishuan was only capable of defeating Niefei Bai. In fact, it was nothing. However, when Yishuan truly attacked, he discovered that he seemed to be somewhat wrong. Yishuan's strength had far exceeded his estimation. He was extremely tyrannical. Facing this sword, he didn't choose to face it head-on. He directly stepped on lightning, and dodged the dense sword light. Boom! 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 The sword she slashed down on the ground, and set off a dense explosion sound. The sound lingered in the ears, and shook in all directions. At this time, both of them had some misgivings because the people from the Southern Sea region were about to arrive. In other words, they didn't have much time left. They didn't know when those experts from the Southern Sea region would arrive, and they couldn't afford to delay for even a moment. He looked up to the sky and waved his hand. Suddenly, countless clouds condensed in the sky from nothingness. In just an instant, those clouds began to turn into dark clouds. Countless lightning began to strike down, and fell on the ground, forming a sea of lightning. The crazy lightning snakes began to devour everything in this world. Because he saw that Yi Qianqian was protected by Yi Shiwen's Tianyuan mirror, so he could fight without worrying about hurting Yi Qianqian. After all, he had already decided to use her as a cultivation furnace. He grabbed out with his hand and grabbed countless bolts of lightning. These bolts of lightning twined around his fist. All of a sudden, a terrifying fist force tore apart the blood chi. It twisted and turned into a terrifying lightning beast. This lightning beast contained countless of his understanding of fist arts. This was the rhythm of wanting to beat him to death with one punch, not giving him any chance to breathe. Fighting with me? I'll kill you! At this moment, Hao Tsung roared out cruelly, revealing his brutal nature. No matter how cunning he was, his brutal nature was also true. His fist was covered with runes that looked abnormally simple and mysterious. After the lightning was absorbed by these runes, it was instantly transformed into a terrifying fist energy. This was a fist energy that he controlled with the lightning attribute. That huge thunder beast roared. Everything began to boil amidst the countless electric sparks, and directly bombarded into Yi Shiwen's body. Boom! Countless lightning power actually bombarded into Yi Shiwen's body, and in his body, it was divided into countless lightning atoms. It actually wanted to severely injure Yi Shiwen's body and destroy his meridians. The storm-like attacks bombarded into Yi Shiwen's body. It was like a huge lightning current that suddenly crashed into him. Seeing Yi Shiwen being bombarded by this fist, even Yi Qianqian, who was in the Tianyuan mirror, suddenly trembled. Although she knew that Yi Shiwen was very strong, she didn't know how strong he was. Moreover, no matter how strong he was, how strong could he be? How could he be compared with Hao Tsung, who was about to enter the law manifestation realm? Let's see if you can still survive this! Hao Tsung sneered and said. That's all. Hao Tsung, is this all you can do? In the torrent of lightning, Yi Shiwen was not easily knocked down. On the contrary, his body seemed to be absorbing the energy of these lightning. Not only did these fists and lightning fail to injure him, but they also seemed to have become a great supplement for him. It was unknown how much power of thunder and lightning was contained in his body. He could even absorb the power of thunder and lightning from the heavenly tribulation and use it to temper his body, let alone this level of thunder and lightning. What's going on? Hao Tsung was a little shocked. He didn't expect that his fist not only failed to injure Yi Shiwen, but it also became a great supplement for Yi Shiwen. He suddenly panicked. If his attack couldn't hurt Yi Shiwen, then there was no chance of winning if this continued. However, he didn't know that it was not that his fist couldn't hurt Yi Shiwen. Those fist forces couldn't hurt Yi Shiwen at all. After the Phoenix regeneration technique healed the slight injuries, they couldn't be seen at all. Yi Shiwen could maintain his peak state at all times. How could he be killed so easily? The current Yi Shiwen had already entered the Transcendent Realm 9th level peak. He was just a step away from entering the half-step law manifestation realm. His strength was no longer the same as before. How could he be killed with one punch? If it were the Yi Shiwen half a year ago, he might be severely injured with one punch. If he were to forcefully resist, he might not be able to withstand many moves before dying. However, the current situation was different. You want me to surrender with just this kind of strength? Yi Shiwen sneered with a bit of disdain. A larger swordlight burst out from his hand. After experiencing it once, he would never let it happen again. The world seemed to have fallen into sorrow. Countless sword lights began to fill the entire world as if to destroy the world. Destroying this civilization was an even more destructive power than the lightning power that Hao Tsang had displayed previously. It was born purely for the sake of destruction, 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 and destruction. The sword lights condensed together and directly turned into a giant sword. It fell from the sky. What swordsmanship is this? There was a slight change in Hao Tsang's expression. However, there was no time for him to think too much at this moment. He immediately blasted out a punch. The power of countless thunder and lightning accompanied it. It turned into a thunder dragon and blasted out. Boom! 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 Loud explosions could be heard everywhere. The battle between the two caused the entire world to explode. It was as if there was no place that didn't collide. Yishuan's sword momentum could be said to be powerful and heavy. When Hao Tsang faced Yishuan, he could only retreat step by step. Facing Yishuan, who wasn't afraid of his thunder and lightning, he had lost his biggest reliance. He was extremely sullen and helpless in this fight. Damn it, do you really think I can't do anything to you? Hao Tsang roared again and again. The aura on his body condensed, forming circles of energy waves that swept out. His figure instantly leaped out like lightning. He attacked in front of Yishuan and launched a counterattack. It was because he knew very well that he couldn't let Yishuan continue like this. Yishuan's fighting style was completely dependent on his imposing manner. The stronger his imposing manner was, the more powerful his moves would be. And if Yishuan continued to attack like this, his imposing manner would become more and more terrifying. In this case, it would become more and more difficult to fight against him in the later stages. At this time, the only way was to suppress all of his imposing manner. A huge virtual shadow of thunder and lightning appeared behind him. It was a terrifying and great godlike existence. It joined hands with Hao Tsang and pounced towards Yishuan to kill him. Yishuan, you'd better surrender. It's impossible for you to be my opponent, Hao Tsang shouted while attacking Yishuan. You're destined to become my scapegoat. With just you? You want me to surrender? Are you stupid? Yishuan shouted coldly. Who do you think you are? Do you think you're qualified to make me surrender? The sword light in his hand suddenly pierced through the sky and attacked Hao Tsang. He didn't give Hao Tsang any chance to catch his breath. Heavenly thunder explosion! Hao Tsang immediately shouted in order to resist the long sword that was rushing towards him. Then, the countless lightning power in the sky condensed together and exploded crazily. The aftermath of the explosion swept out in circles and rushed directly towards Yishuan. These thunderbolts were the most vigorous and extreme yang energy in the world. Therefore, they were extremely violent. After the self-detonation, the huge amount of energy accumulated inside exploded in an instant. A large amount of blood energy collapsed in midair and directly bombarded in front of Yishuan. Yishuan raised his hand and slashed again. The sword light directly protected him. The lightning that exploded in the west had no way to get close to him. However, it was obvious that Hao Tsang's attack had only just begun. Under his control, those lightning powers suddenly transformed into thousands of lightning soldiers. All of them began to rush towards Yishuan. Yishuan stepped on the ground, and countless sword auras splashed out from his body. These sword auras shot out in all directions. The lightning army roared and exploded into pure lightning energy after coming into contact with the sword auras. Go to hell! At this time, Hao Tsang, who had been directing the lightning attacks all along, finally made his move. His fist blasted through the vast sky and arrived in front of Yishuan in an instant. The terrifying fist energy made Yishuan's clothes flutter in the wind. It seemed as if he wanted to blow Yishuan up with just one punch. Chapter 1070. He had already run out of patience. Behind him, a huge shadow of a thunder giant flashed and appeared in his sea of thunder and lightning. Yishuan's complexion was the same as usual. On his body, masses of golden divinities swept out, as if there were gods singing Sanskrit in it. The power of thunder and lightning couldn't do anything to Yishuan. For an ordinary warrior, The power of thunder and lightning would explode in an instant if they were to absorb even a little bit of it. It was very difficult to deal with. However, it was very easy to deal with for Yishiwen. No matter how difficult it was to deal with, could it compare to the terrifying sea of thunder and lightning during the heavenly tribulation? Compared to the heavenly tribulation which could transform into ancient giant beasts, these electric snakes were simply drizzling. Yishiwen didn't make any superfluous movements. He merely brandished his sword. However, it didn't seem like it had great power. "You are no match for me," Yishiwen said faintly. Under Yishiwen's attacks, Hao Tsung, who was supposed to display his invincible might, was somewhat bitter and speechless. He used his full strength, but it was very difficult to deal with Yishiwen. He didn't want the battle to continue in this stalemate. However, Yishiwen was also starting to feel dissatisfied with this stalemate. He didn't know how long it would take for the experts of the Southern Sea region to arrive. He couldn't continue to delay like this for even a minute. "Your domain is only SOSO. Now I'll let you see my domain. You'll know that your understanding of thunder and lightning is simply a joke." Yishiwen didn't say much. A pair of wind and thunder wings suddenly appeared behind him. With a sudden flap, endless power of wind and thunder swept out. The radius of 100 miles instantly turned into a wind and thunder domain. Hao Tsing's thunder and lightning domain was simply too weak in front of Yishiwen's domain. It could only be continuously engulfed. It was simply nothing. In front of Yishiwen's power of wind and thunder, Hao Tsung's law of thunder and lightning seemed so vulnerable. Hao Tsung had been practicing thunder techniques since he was a child. In fact, he had been practicing them for a much longer time than Yishiwen. Moreover, he was also a world-shaking genius. In fact, many old fogies' comprehension of thunder techniques was far inferior to his. However, he was unlucky to have encountered Yishiwen. If it was an expert who had surpassed the law manifestation realm, or a top expert in the law manifestation realm, perhaps their understanding of the thunder dharma might surpass Yishiwen. After all, his realm was not even in the law manifestation realm. However, in terms of the same realm, or even several realms higher than him, they were no match for him. After all, not everyone was like him, possessing a mysterious space that could deduce everything he could comprehend at his realm to the extreme. He could even deduce things that he couldn't comprehend at his current level. However, the higher the level, the more spiritual qi he would need. In fact, if he didn't have the restriction of spiritual qi, he could surpass the law manifestation realm in a short period of time and break through all the way. He didn't need to worry about anything else. In this thunder and lightning domain, he was the incarnation of the thunder god. All the thunder and lightning in the world couldn't dominate in front of him. His sword light completely broke through Hao Tsung's fist energy. The thunder and lightning were instantly absorbed and transformed. It was as if he wasn't worried about the consequences of the thunder and lightning on his body. He was truly fearless. "Impossible! How can you be so terrifying?" Hao Tsung began to panic at this time. He finally understood how terrifying it was to encounter a guy who could completely restrain himself. However, this was basically impossible to encounter. Thunder and lightning itself were the orthodox of the world. It was the nemesis of everything in the world. It was a tool used by the heavens to carry out heavenly punishment. It could be said that there was no power that could restrain the law of thunder. However, Yishiwen was an exception. Although he couldn't restrain the power of thunder and lightning, he could absorb the energy of the thunder and transform it into his own energy. This was the most terrifying thing. An ability that was even more terrifying than his tyrant body. Hao Tsung still couldn't believe it. He was a dignified expert of the late stage of the law manifestation realm. He was just a little bit away from stepping into the law manifestation realm. However, he was defeated by Yishiwen again and again. At this time, he finally understood what Niefeibai felt previously. The feeling of being unable to deal with an opponent who was getting stronger and stronger. "I can't accept this. My thunder technique is enough to restrain all the laws in the world. No one can restrain my law of thunder!" Hao Tsung bellowed out and roared out. boundless true energy burst forth. At this moment, the dark clouds in the sky began to descend crazily. These thunder and lightning engulfed each other in midair, and became bigger and bigger. Even when they were about to strike Yishiwen's body, Yishiwen moved. The sword light tore the sky. Those thunder dragons couldn't even enter Yishiwen's body and dissipated. They turned into pure thunder and lightning energy, and were engulfed by his domain. In turn, it increased Yishiwen's strength. 3 swords in 1! Yishiwen shouted, and the long sword in his hand slashed 3 times. Burial sword! Burial sword! Burial sword! These 3 swords began to gather in Yishiwen's hand. More than 1/10 of the qi in his body was instantly extracted. It was almost as if the qi in his body was instantly sucked dry. Countless swordlights began to split from the 3 swords and shook the sky. In an instant, they condensed together and formed a long sword. Then it shot out. When Hao Tsung saw this scene, his scalp went numb. He had never seen such a terrifying sword cultivator. Those sword cultivators that he had seen in the past were nothing in his eyes. Boom! The long sword instantly cut through the vast sky, and before he could even react, the long sword had already pierced through his body. His upright body began to crumble inch by inch, and his spine was instantly broken. Yishiwen's sword ki was even more terrifying than he had imagined. However, this sword still couldn't kill Hao Tsung. Although he was seriously injured, he obviously hadn't died yet. It was just that compared to his previous majestic appearance, he was like a stray dog at this time. And now, Yishiwen only had less than half of the qi left in his body. Hao Tsung was definitely the most powerful opponent that he had ever encountered. However, he wasn't the most tenacious opponent that he had encountered. Neither was he the most dangerous opponent that he had encountered. But even so, the consumption of more than half of the qi was enough to prove Hao Tsung's strength. Compared to Hao Tsung, Nye Feibai was really far behind. However, this was the end of it. There seemed to be stars being born and destroyed in Yishiwen's eyes. It was like a cold and desolate universe. It was bottomless. At this time, he spread out his big hand and a mass of resentment leaped onto it. Countless blood qi in the surroundings gathered crazily on his palm under a mysterious suction force. A huge demon qi bomb was formed in an instant. Shwa! Yishiwen suddenly exerted force on his right arm. Suddenly, this huge demon qi bomb instantly tore the sky apart and bombarded Hao Tsung, who had already suffered serious injuries. Boom! A huge mushroom cloud rose up from his body. The terrifying power tore his body into pieces and rapidly minced his soul to pieces. He could not be any more dead than he was. The qi in Yishiwen's body was reduced by more than 1/5. Although he still had considerable battle power, he wasn't in his peak condition. However, Yishiwen couldn't care so much at this time. He didn't know when the people from the Southern Sea region would come. Time didn't allow him to continue waiting. He quickly cleaned up the entire battlefield. These people were really rich. They were all high and mighty people in their respective sea regions. Just from Hao Tsung's body, Yishiwen had obtained more than 20 million bloodstones and 300 million spirit crystals. His wealth that he had accumulated over the years had now fallen into Yishiwen's hands. Apart from Hao Tsung, the wealth of those experts from the Southern Sea region, Nye Feibai and the others had also fallen into Yishiwen's hands. In total, there were 40 million bloodstones and 1.3 billion spirit crystals. In addition to Hao Tsung's wealth, Yishiwen had obtained more than 60 million bloodstones and 1.6 billion spirit crystals from killing these people. There were also countless other heavenly treasures. Even Yishiwen couldn't help but sigh. Sure enough, killing was the fastest way to accumulate wealth. It was no wonder that so many people liked to kill. It was the fastest way to accumulate wealth. Continuous killing, accumulation of wealth, and rapid enhancement of one's own strength. Then, one could go on to kill stronger opponents. This was really a fascinating and rapid way to increase one's strength. Yishiwen sighed. However, this kind of thinking had never entered his heart. He was very clear about what he wanted. It was something that he absolutely couldn't touch. Although this path could make rapid progress, it was easy to get lost in it. When that time came, he would become a puppet of his desires. This was what ordinary people would call having an inner demon. Having an inner demon was the most frightening thing. No matter how far one walked, no matter how high one climbed, there would always be a day when one's inner demon would break out. Once it broke out, it might even be fatal. This was the reason why Yishuin felt that it was undesirable. Yishuin hastily arranged the scene. He didn't have time to deal with it. The corpses of those experts from the Southern Sea region were here. As for Hao Tseng's corpse, it had already been blown up by him. He had also taken it away and absorbed by the Tianyuan mirror. There was no need to hide anything else. Although Nie Fei Bai's death was related to him, wasn't it Hao Tseng who had killed him in the end? That was enough. It didn't matter what else it was. Therefore, he didn't even clean up Nie Fei Bai's corpse. He believed that those experts from the Southern Sea region would be able to easily determine it when they arrived. Yishuin left the scene in a hurry after arranging everything a little. Chapter 1071. In less than half a day after Yishuin left the scene, a group of people rushed to the scene with unparalleled terrifying auras. Every one of them had a terrifying aura. The man who was leading the group was somewhat similar to Nie Fei Bai. At this time, when he saw his younger brother's corpse on the ground, his face revealed a somewhat painful expression. "Find out what's going on," said the man who was somewhat similar to Nie Fei Bai coldly. He had watched his younger brother grow up, and now he actually died here. For him, there was nothing more painful than this. Due to the aftermath of the battle, Yishuin, Nie Fei Bai, and Hao Tseng were terrifying experts who were half a step into the late stage of the law manifestation realm. Even the aftermath of the battle was enough to deter the blood fiends from approaching them. Hence, the scene was still maintained very well. It was the same as what Yishuin had arranged previously. "No matter who dares to kill my dearest younger brother, I will definitely let you die without a burial place." Very quickly, a report arrived in his hands. The one who had invited Nie Fei Bai here was Hao Tseng, who had not been present at the scene. In addition, Nie Fei Bai's final attack had also been verified. He had indeed died under Hao Tseng's famous consummate technique. All the spearheads were pointed at Hao Tseng, who had disappeared at this time. Although there were still some doubts, all of this was no longer important. Who would care about this? Good. Despicable guy, how dare you attack my younger brother? The man who was somewhat similar to Nie Fei Bai roared in a low voice. He led the experts of the Southern Sea region and quickly flew towards the Sky Thunder Sea region. On this day, the entire Sky Thunder City flowed like a river of blood. Tens of thousands of experts in the Sky Thunder City, whether they were experts of the Sky Thunder Sea region or not, were all killed. The furious Southern Sea region quickly massacred the entire Sky Thunder City. There were corpses and blood everywhere. The entire Sky Thunder City became a living hell. Soon, there was no one guarding the Sky Thunder City. Because of the countless corpses and blood left behind, countless blood fiends quickly occupied the Sky Thunder City. Soon, it was submerged in countless blood fiends, and it became another blood fiend's nest. It was even said that there were terrifying blood fiends in the law manifestation realm. The rage of a super sea region had shaken the entire blood world. Because of the death of an important disciple of the Southern Sea region, Sky Thunder City had turned into a living hell. As for the evidence, was it important? No one cared about the evidence anymore. This matter quickly became a hot topic among the experts of the various clans in the blood world. However, even those who had gone out to deal with some matters and managed to escape the calamity, regardless of whether they were experts from the Sky Lightning Sea region or experts from other sea regions, none of them dared to cause trouble for the Southern Sea region. That was because the Southern Sea region was an opponent that they could not defeat. Thus, everyone targeted the experts of the Sky Lightning Sea region. That was because the Southern Sea region had announced to the public that the experts of the Southern Sea region had died at the hands of the Sky Lightning Sea region's Hao Tseng. This was the main reason why the Southern Sea region had massacred the Sky Lightning City. After being targeted and encircled by these sea regions, the Sky Lightning Sea region, which was originally a majestic and powerful top-notch mid-sized sea region, quickly became a name in history. Even if there were some survivors, they would definitely not dare to call themselves experts of the Sky Lightning Sea region. Even some martial arts experts who practiced thunder techniques had to be careful at this time. That was because it was very likely that they would be killed by others just like that. Facing the enraged Southern Sea region, they had to be extremely cautious. Even though they weren't from the Sky Lightning Sea region, if they were careless and ended up being killed by someone from the Sky Lightning Sea region, who would they cry to? However, all of this had nothing to do with Yishiwen. That was because he was currently in closed-door training. This time around, his fight with Hao Tseng had exposed some of the problems that he had previously exposed even more. If he had not relied on his tyrannical strength to kill Hao Tseng in the end, then the problems would have been really big. His buried sword secret art was already somewhat unable to keep up with Yishiwen's current battle. Previously, Yishiwen had always wanted to create a new sword move so that the buried sword secret art could keep up with his battle rhythm. Just like the 3 swords in one, Yishiwen could only be said to have developed half of this move. It was not complete at all. It was merely an embryonic form. However, apart from the move living with the heavens and earth, its power was more than doubled. Even so, it was not able to kill Hao Tseng previously. It could be seen that the power of this move still needed to be strengthened. Yishiwen's goal in this closed-door training was to completely deduce the 3 swords in one technique. He had the help of the mysterious space, so he was much stronger than an average person. So, it wouldn't be a problem as long as he was willing to spend spirit crystals. However, was spirit crystals a problem now? Of course, it was not a problem. He had just seized a huge amount of spirit crystals. Now, it could be said that he had become rich overnight. When it came to spending spirit crystals, he was very extravagant. He was completely unscrupulous. In a mountain forest, a figure was constantly waving an iron sword. The iron sword was flying across the sky. There was no excess real elemental energy. It seemed as if it was constantly waving. Only the sword light that occasionally spurted out from the tip of the sword would make people tremble with fear. Yishiwen closed his eyes, and calmly felt the sword weigh. The mysterious space inside his body was constantly deducing the essence of the 3 swords in one, and imprinting it into his spirit. This allowed him to quickly master it. He did not need to go through the process of learning it. This could save him a lot of time. Even the sword moves of the iron sword were not following any pattern. If it was seen by an outsider, perhaps they would think that he was simply waving randomly. There was no pattern at all. It was messy and disorderly. However, only the people who truly understood the sword could understand that Yishiwen's seemingly irregular sword moves contained the trajectory of the sword way. Yishiwen's understanding of the sword was contained in these messy and disorderly sword moves. The buried sword secrets focused more on the meaning and not on the form. In fact, as the martial arts developed further, the sword moves became more and more simplified. For example, many Hotian-level martial arts often had dozens of sword moves, such as 81 moves, 72 moves, 49 moves, and so on. As the martial arts developed further, these sword moves also became more and more simple. There were fewer and fewer sword moves, but the might of these sword moves became more and more powerful. As the sword moves became more and more simple, they became more and more similar to the trajectory of the Great Way. According to the legends, those masters would attack each other. Those sword moves seemed to be sword moves, but in fact, they were attacks of the Great Way level. They bombarded each other with their own understanding of the Great Way. In other words, they weren't attacking by themselves. Instead, they were attacking with the help of the power of the Great Way. For Yishiwen, that kind of realm was still a realm that he didn't even dare to think about. However, this didn't prevent him from working hard in this direction. The buried sword secrets itself was a very simplified technique. There were a total of 4 sword moves. It could be said that it had reached a certain level of simplification. If he wanted to simplify it again and turn it into a sword move, it wasn't something that the current Yishiwen could do. It was useless even if he added the mysterious space. Even if he could do it, the price would be unbearable for Yishiwen. Therefore, Yishiwen didn't intend to simplify the buried sword secrets. On the contrary, he wanted to strengthen the buried sword secrets. He wanted to upgrade the buried sword secrets to the earth level in one go. In this way, Yishiwen would be able to use it with ease. Even in the law manifestation realm, it would have considerable power. He stayed in this mountain range for another 10 days. Only then did he finally upgrade the buried sword secrets to the earth level. Even so, he had spent a total of 500 million spirit crystals. Yishiwen realized that he had used up so many spirit crystals when he counted them. He suddenly felt a little distressed. He had seized a lot of spirit crystals this time. However, he was afraid that he would run out of them in less than 2 years if he continued to consume them at this rate. Many Transcendent Realm experts might not be able to consume as many spirit crystals as Yishiwen had consumed in 10 days. However, there was no other way. After all, he wasn't like those disciples of major forces. Every one of them had a huge sect backing them up. Sometimes, the role of such a backing wasn't just to protect the weak. It also included various resources within the sect. Among these resources, martial arts resources were also a very important part. With the talent and strength he had displayed, if he was in another force, he would probably be nurtured by the higher-ups of that force very quickly. He wouldn't need to go through so much trouble to improve the quality of his cultivation technique. He only needed to say the word and there would be a large number of earth rank, heaven rank, and divine rank cultivation techniques for him to use. It was useless even if he followed Yemo around. Most of Yemo's martial arts belonged to the demon race. Yishiwen had a lot of demon race martial arts. However, he didn't have many other races' martial arts, especially the human race's martial arts. Unless Yishiwen planned to become a human demon, the martial arts that were specially developed for the demon race wouldn't be suitable for him at all. He could only wait and see when Yemo would occasionally recall a martial art that was suitable for him. Besides raising the quality of the burial sword technique to the earth rank, he also had to completely deduce the move of combining the 3 swords into one, which he only had a vague concept of. To him, this was even more difficult than raising the burial sword technique to the earth rank, and it required even more time and experience. Chapter 1072. However, this was something that couldn't be helped. Although he already had a few trump cards, it was better to have more of them. The more hidden the better. Perhaps the power of a few trump cards was about the same, but in terms of stealth and surprise, the more, the better. Because if the opponent didn't know about the trump cards, he wouldn't be on guard. Not far away from him, Yi Qianqian just looked at Yishiwen with a calm expression. However, if one looked closely at her eyes, one would find that her eyes were full of shock. She was shocked by Yishiwen's strength. Because she saw that Yishiwen was actually improving the quality of the entire sword art. She didn't feel much about the buried sword technique because among the martial arts she knew, there were many that were more powerful than the buried sword technique. However, what really surprised her was that Yishiwen was actually improving the quality of a sword art. This was something that she couldn't do. Not only did it require a profound understanding of the sword art, but it also required comprehension. At the very least, one had to surpass the law manifestation realm in order to achieve such a thing. However, the person in front of her seemed to be able to achieve this with his own strength in just 10 days. If she didn't see it with her own eyes, she would never believe it because it was too outrageous. Moreover, it was outrageous and exaggerated. Generally, the entire force needed to concentrate their strength and improve bit by bit in order to achieve it in hundreds of years, or even longer. However, he did it alone. Was this person really a genius? This was the only explanation that could explain why Yishiwen could do it. She had seen many geniuses, including many famous ones in the entire ancient Barrens continent. However, such a talent couldn't be considered a genius anymore. He could only be considered a monster. It might be hard to find a monster like this in 10,000 years or even tens of thousands of years. All of this seemed so unbelievable, and it happened right in front of her eyes. However, after watching for a long time, she still chose to close her eyes and rest. The advantage of being by Yishuan's side was that she didn't have to worry about any danger. There was a sense of peace of mind. She could start to restore her strength with all her might. In these 10 days, she finally entered the legendary realm in one fell swoop. Although she was still pitifully weak in this blood world, it was already a gratifying result for her. The two didn't say anything and were both immersed in their own matters. As the two of them went into seclusion, another 20 days passed bit by bit. TSK, blood flowed like a river that day. More than half of them were killed by Nyefian. One of the 4 heavenly kings of the southern sea region is indeed impressive. In a restaurant, many people were still talking about this issue. Even though a month had passed, this matter was still the hottest topic in the entire blood realm. There was no other reason. It was because the blood world was in dire need of such a hot topic. In the blood world, everyone's hearts were abnormally depressed. If they were not careful, they could die on the spot. Those blood beasts were their enemies. Even the young warriors of the various races were enemies that they had to be on guard against. Everyone's nerves were stretched taut. Now that there was a topic that could let everyone relax, it immediately became the topic of conversation. The destruction of a sea region was not a big topic in the blood world, especially a topic like the flourished Cloud Sea region. A sea region would be destroyed almost every few days or even a dozen days. There were many reasons for this, so it was not worth paying attention to. Even a medium-sized sea region like the Sky Thunder Sea region would receive news from time to time that it had been destroyed. This was not surprising. However, what really made people talk about it was that this news involved the experts of the Southern Sea region. In the Endless Sea region, the 4 Super Sea regions were undoubtedly the best among them. In the hearts of the experts of many races, they were equivalent to the legendary martial arts Holy Land. Everything about them was a very interesting topic for them. This time, it was Nyefian, one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Southern Sea region, who took action. Even though they were all elites from the Endless Sea region and martial arts geniuses from various clans, they were obviously divided into different levels. Among them, Nyefian was undoubtedly the top genius. This was without a doubt. What's more, this matter was so big. The entire Sky Thunder City was slaughtered, and no one was left alive. Many sea regions that were on good terms with the Sky Thunder Sea region were a little nervous. They were afraid that this matter would implicate them, which would be bad. However, that Hao Tsung of the Sky Thunder Sea region is simply courting death. He actually dared to attack the experts of the Southern Sea region. Isn't his brain stuck in the door? Isn't that right? I have never seen such a person before. The Southern Sea region has now issued an arrest warrant for him. They want to tear him into pieces. Unfortunately, they haven't found him yet. I don't know where he went. Not far from the martial artist who was speaking, a man and a woman were sitting in their seats. They just listened quietly and didn't say anything. The woman attracted the attention of many people, not only because of her beautiful appearance, but also because of the chain on her shoulder blade. This meant that this woman might be the slave of this man. Find him? I'm afraid we will never find him. Yishuan slightly sneered. This was because no one knew better than him that Hao Tsung had died long ago. It was true that Nye Feibai had died at the hands of Hao Tsung. However, Hao Tsung had died at his hands. Therefore, they were simply wasting their time looking for a person who couldn't possibly exist. He finally came out of the closed-door training after 20 days. This was because he had finally deduced the 3 swords in one technique. He had forcibly deduced it in a short period of time. Therefore, the speed at which those spirit crystals were burning was simply terrifying. In just 20 days, 300 million of those spirit crystals had been burned. However, the effect was also very obvious. He had finally completed the 3 swords in one technique. This strength had made a huge breakthrough compared to the past. If it had been in the past, perhaps he would have been able to pierce through Hao Tsung with his sword. He wouldn't have needed to add a punch to kill Hao Tsung. He had upgraded the buried sword secret art to the earth level. He had also completely deduced the 3 swords in one technique. He was now in a good mood. Therefore, he set off again. After entering this small town, he went to a restaurant. However, he didn't expect that they would still be discussing this issue. The only 2 people who knew the truth were Yi Shiwen and Yi Qianqian. However, the 2 of them wouldn't take the initiative to say it. Therefore, this was destined to be a hidden secret. At this time, Yi Qianqian's brows slightly wrinkled. This was because she felt that there were a few lascivious gazes staring at her without concealing it. Yi Shiwen also seemed to be aware of Yi Qianqian's problem. He followed her gaze and saw a young man in a luxurious robe and several young expert disciples staring at Yi Qianqian. Yi Shiwen could sense the unhappiness in Yi Qianqian's heart. If she was still in her peak state, perhaps she would have already attacked them. "Let's go!" Yi Qianqian faintly said. These people's gazes made her very uncomfortable. She also felt a bit disgusted in her heart. In the past, no one had dared to look at her like this no matter where she went. "No, wait for me!" At this time, Yi Shiwen stood up and walked in front of the table of people. In the entire restaurant, the atmosphere suddenly became solemn. Everyone noticed Yi Shiwen's actions. They didn't know what he was going to do, so at this time, they paid special attention to him. "Boy, what are you doing? Do you want to die? Why don't you get out of here?" At this time, several young experts roared one after another. Yi Shiwen's actions were seen as a provocation to them. At this time, they suddenly felt humiliated and roared one after another. "Boy, you are lucky today to meet this young master. As long as you are willing to give that slave girl to me, then you can ask for anything you want." The young man in the luxurious robe pointed at Yi Shiwen and said. His face was slightly pale, and it seemed as if his body had been hollowed out. This was also rare among these warriors because there were even many warriors who, in order to achieve the best cultivation results, were still in the body of a child. Even if many people had a partner, it was for the sake of dual cultivation. Pure lecherous people were rare. In their eyes, Yi Qianqian must be Yi Shiwen's female slave. Otherwise, her scapula would not have been locked. However, he didn't come for the 9-yin origin body. In order to avoid trouble, Yi Shiwen had personally concealed the aura of the 9-yin origin body for Yi Qianqian. This young man in the luxurious robe was only coveting Yi Qianqian's beauty. In his opinion, this condition was generous enough. He could ask for anything he wanted. Such conditions were naturally extremely superior for many warriors. As for the female slave and so on, it was not important at all. As long as one had money, they could buy any female slave. There were many beautiful female slaves of various races that they could choose from. Therefore, he said this with full confidence. He felt that this was Yi Shiwen's luck. Many eyes swept over here. Many young warriors also secretly swallowed their saliva. They were somewhat envious of Yi Shiwen. They didn't know where he got such a high-quality female slave. If Yi Qianqian's scapula was not locked at this time, then they probably wouldn't dare to look at her so unscrupulously. After all, most of the people who could appear in this bloody world were female warriors with tyrannical cultivation. In this world where strength was respected, as long as one had enough strength, one could win the respect of others, regardless of gender. "Has anyone told you that you are very unlucky today?" Yi Shiwen said with a grin. Chapter 1073. The young man in the luxurious robe was stunned on the spot. He did not know what Yi Shiwen meant by saying this. "What do you mean?" For some reason, he blurted out these words. "Didn't you hear me clearly? I said, is your luck bad today?" Yi Shiwen said with a grin. "Bastard, who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like this?" At this time, the well-dressed young master finally realized the meaning of Yi Shiwen's words. He suddenly became furious. For him, buying Yi Shiwen's female slaves was simply a kind of charity. In his eyes, it was no different from throwing a piece of spirit crystal to a beggar on the roadside. There was no difference in essence. He was still proud of his own kindness, but Yishiwen said so to him. So, he didn't understand for a while. In his opinion, after he said so, shouldn't Yishiwen be grateful? However, the result was completely different. Not only did Yishiwen not feel grateful, but he also ridiculed him. Suddenly, he was angry. For the first time, he felt that there was no reward for doing a good deed. Of course, he never considered what might be charity to him, but what others would think. Slap! A loud slap sounded. Yishiwen slapped the face of the young man in the luxurious robe. However, his handsome but extremely pale face was directly swollen. Everyone was knocked unconscious by this slap, including the young man in the luxurious robe. Perhaps he was used to having a smooth life, so no one had ever dared to treat him like this. However, on Yishiwen's side, he felt surprised again and again. When he thought he could scare Yishiwen, he was greeted with a big slap from Yishiwen. This slap completely stunned him. Bastard, how dare you! At this time, the few young men around him finally reacted and rushed towards Yishiwen in anger. They were all experts half a step into the transcendence realm. Everyone in the restaurant secretly raised the spiritual energy in their bodies to prevent themselves from being affected. There was still a bit of shock in their eyes. They didn't expect that there would be so many experts half a step into the transcendence realm by the side of this well-dressed man. Although it had been almost half a year, half-step law manifestation realm experts were not as rare as when they first entered the blood realm. However, it was rare to enter the half-step law manifestation realm in this short period of half a year. Most of them were already in the transcendent realm 9th level, or above. Only then could they enter the half-step law manifestation realm initial in this short period of half a year. Such an expert would be considered a top-notch genius even in the various great sea domains. They would also be the geniuses nurtured by the various great powers. However, such a person had actually become the follower of this luxuriously robed young master. Who exactly was this luxuriously robed young master? He immediately cursed in his heart. This kid must have provoked an iron plate. How could a guy with so many half-step law phase realm experts be so easy to deal with? Pa! 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 A series of slaps resounded. The attacking half-step law manifestation realm experts only saw the sky full of palm shadows. Immediately, they felt a sharp pain rushing into their minds. Their faces were slap swollen. Their faces were swollen like a pig's head. At this time, the luxuriously robed young master looked better. He was not as ugly as before. At this time, how could everyone not know that they had provoked an iron plate? The transcendent realm 9th level kid in front of them initially did not put him in their eyes. In a small or medium-sized sea domain, even a transcendent realm 9th level expert would be an expert. However, they did not take him seriously. They did not expect this transcendent realm 9th level kid to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. They could even contend against a half-step law manifestation intermediate expert if they joined forces. But now, they were slapped in the face easily. Apart from the palm shadows, they did not even see how Yishiwen attacked. At this time, how could they not feel a chill in their hearts? They were able to survive until now. Naturally, they would not be blind. This was not their sea domain. If they died here, no one would seek justice for them. Brother, what happened just now was really a misunderstanding. We have no malicious intent. At this time, one of the half-step law manifestation realm experts came out and said with cupped hands. His words were unclear. Yishiwen's slap just now made their teeth loose. Their words were leaking air, and their faces were swollen like a pig's head. However, they had no choice but to stand up. They knew very well that Yishiwen held back. Otherwise, they would not just be swollen like a pig's head. At this time, the well-dressed man seemed to have finally realized this. He did not continue to clamor but lowered his head. If someone could see his eyes, they would see that he wanted to devour someone. He had never been humiliated like this since he was a child. For him, this was the most humiliating thing in his life. But at this time, he was also very clear that he was definitely not Yishiwen's opponent. Revenge was also a matter for the future, but if he provoked Yishiwen now, then it would be really bad, and he might die on the spot. Yishuan glanced at them without any malicious intent. Do they think I am a fool? If he were just an ordinary Transcendent Realm 9th level warrior, Yi Qianqian would have been snatched away by now. In this world, only strength could determine everything. The so-called justice and reason were all fleeting clouds. He just sneered, but he did not intend to continue to pursue the matter. After all, it was just a small quarrel. When you have time, go out and look at the almanac. Some thoughts should not be stirred up. Some people you can't afford to offend. Now that no one was chasing him, he did not need to choose the method to avoid it like before. However, apart from the law manifestation realm blood fiends, Yishuan did not let go of the other blood fiends he encountered. There were even a few times when Yishuan encountered a few extremely terrifying blood fiends at the peak of the half-step law manifestation realm. They were really close to stepping into the law manifestation realm. They could easily tear apart a group of experts at the late stage of the half-step law manifestation realm. Even Yishuan had to go through a great battle to kill them. However, the benefits of doing so were also very obvious. Although Yishuan's strength did not increase significantly, there was still some improvement. It seemed that he was not far from breaking through to the early stage of the half-step law manifestation realm. Yishuan was not very anxious. He continued to kill the blood fiends and absorb the blood cores. What surprised Yishuan the most was that the Tianyuan mirror finally began to transform after devouring the essence and blood of so many blood fiends at the half-step law manifestation realm. Yemo also fell into a deep sleep. When he woke up again, it would definitely be in the ranks of the Earth-level magic tool. At that time, Du would be a great main force for Yishuan. Yi Qianqian's strength had already crossed the legendary realm, and reached the sage realm amidst all this fighting and killing. Yishuan was somewhat dumbstruck by the speed of her progress. If this continued, Yi Qianqian's strength would probably return to the half-step law manifestation realm in a few years. At that time, she would not just be a burden to him. They had been trekking for a full 2 months and finally reached the location of the treasure on the map. Chapter 1074. According to the drawing on the treasure map, this should be an underground passageway. However, when the two of them arrived, they discovered that there was actually a city here. A huge city standing horizontally there. This was something that wasn't drawn on the treasure map. Perhaps this treasure map had been formed for too long, so long that this city hadn't even appeared yet. They were already quite close to the core area of the blood world. If they walked further in, they would reach the true core area of the blood world. Over there, the true transcendent realm blood beasts could only exist as food. The real rulers were the law manifestation realm blood beasts. There were some that even the experts didn't dare to approach. That was a cruel and vicious beast, extremely terrifying. Although it was a little different from the drawing on the map, Yishuan believed that he did not make a mistake. Soon, he learned that this sea region was called the Xianyang Sea region. As the ruler of this area, the Xianyang Sea region established this Xianyang city. There were more than tens of thousands of warriors gathered in it. One could imagine how prosperous this place was. These were not ordinary people, but the best among the warriors. They were the top elites of the younger generation. With all these gathered together, one could imagine how terrifying it would be. When Yishuan and Yi Qianqian entered, they attracted the attention of many people. Yishuan was not surprised. There were too many Transcendent Realm 9th level warriors in this city. Tens of thousands of people had this cultivation. It was nothing at all. However, Yi Qianqian was still very eye-catching, especially the chain. People immediately guessed her identity. She was a female slave. Fortunately, this Xianyang Sea region was not a sea region that expelled all humans. Although it was a little strange, no one came up to say anything. They were just female slaves. These people might look like ordinary passers-by here, but in the endless sea region outside, they were all famous young geniuses. It was unknown how many slaves they had, and they were from different clans. There was nothing to see at all. Of course, it was rare to see such a female slave in this place. There were too many dangers in this blood realm, so many that they might not be able to calculate it. Most of the time, they could only take care of themselves. He soon heard a piece of news after he entered the profound Yang city, and that was, countless experts had obtained a treasure map, and had come to this place. Although the style of the treasure map was different, but all the maps pointed to this place. Originally, even if everyone obtained the treasure map, they would carefully keep it, and not tell others. Hence, everyone arrived here secretly and began their own exploration. But because of an accident, two people discovered each other's treasure maps, and they both pointed to the same place, so this matter was like a pot of boiling water, suddenly becoming known to everyone. Not only that, but all the experts in the city were also discussing this matter because they didn't have any clues. All the information seemed to point to a mountain not far from here, but there was no more specific information. It seemed that all the maps were just like that. What a headache! Yi Shiwen rubbed his forehead and said with a headache. Yi Shiwen couldn't stay calm as he listened to the discussions of the people around him. At this time, even a stupid person seemed to have discovered that something was wrong. How did so many people obtain this map, and why did they rush here? Of course, more importantly, the master of this city, the experts of the Xianyangxi region, seemed to know nothing about this matter. But if even they didn't know anything about this matter, then who was related to this matter? Yi Shiwen felt a headache coming on as he thought of all the possibilities that he had to face. Yi Shiwen also smelled something unusual. Perhaps, this matter wasn't that simple. I'm afraid this matter isn't that simple, Yi Shiwen said with a headache. Yi Qianqian nodded and looked at Yi Shiwen with an incomprehensible meaning. Yi Shiwen naturally knew what Yi Qianqian meant. Since it was unusual, and there was a hint of conspiracy in it, then choosing not to go was the best way. No matter what kind of temptation or danger there was, as long as he didn't go, then it didn't matter. But like everyone else, Yi Shiwen's heart was full of unwillingness to give up here since he had already come here. Everyone seemed to have the same feeling. Everyone was also waiting for others to explore something. Everyone was waiting, and no one was willing to give up. Yi Qianqian didn't have any thoughts about this. Anyway, the blood world hadn't opened yet, and she couldn't go out. It was naturally the safest to follow Yi Shiwen now. However, what Yi Shiwen didn't expect was that he actually met an acquaintance here. This acquaintance was none other than Jian Wushuang, who had left the entire flourished Cloud Sea region long ago. At this time, the two sides had not seen each other for more than half a year. Compared to half a year ago, Jian Wushuang was stronger now. He had actually entered the peak of half-step law manifestation realm late stage. With a little bit of opportunity, he could enter the law manifestation realm. Yi Shiwen was a little curious. He didn't know what kind of adventure he had in the past half a year. He actually improved so fast that he was almost no worse than Yi Shiwen. Previously in the flourished Cloud Sea region, Jian Wushuang was a very mysterious person. No one knew his origins. They only knew that he suddenly appeared in the flourished Cloud Sea region and was somewhat incompatible with everyone. He was even chased by the Sea Clan and finally escaped. In the past, Yi Shiwen knew that Jian Wushuang was not an ordinary person. He was completely different from the other experts in the flourished Cloud Sea region. Behind him were 3 companions, 2 men and 1 woman. Obviously, they were all companions that Jian Wushuang met during this period of time. None of them was an ordinary person. They were all experts of half-step law manifestation realm late stage. Even in the profound Yang city where experts were everywhere, they could be regarded as the top existence. Of course, this was under the condition that the ruler of this city, the law manifestation realm experts, did not take action. At the same time when Yi Shiwen discovered Jian Wushuang also discovered Yi Shiwen. He immediately walked over with several companions. I didn't expect to see you here. Jian Wushuang looked at Yi Shiwen with some surprise and said. Obviously, in his eyes, those people in the flourished Cloud Sea region were not the same kind of people because they were all people with family businesses. It was impossible for them to leave so many brothers and sisters in the clan and wander around with Jian Wushuang and Yi Shiwen to pursue the peak of martial arts. Yi Shiwen might be the same kind of people as him, but the blood world was so big. It was an accident to meet them here. I'm not surprised. Although the blood world is big, to put it bluntly, it's not that big. Everyone is going to the center, so we will meet sooner or later. It's just a matter of whether it's sooner or later. Of course, the premise is that we don't die, Yi Shiwen said with a smile. In this world, there might be tens of thousands of people at the bottom, but there weren't many people at the top. The higher one went, the smaller the circle would be, and the chances of meeting others would also increase. The day one truly reached the top was the day one would be alone. Yi Shiwen understood this very well. In this blood world, everyone was rushing to the center of the blood world. As long as Jian Wushuang had the strength and was not dead, it was a matter of course to meet. You're right, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Why, Wushuang, is this your friend? At this time, among the 2 men and 1 woman behind Jian Wushuang, a middle-sized, ordinary-looking young man stepped forward and asked. Beside him, there was a handsome man. It could even be said that he was quite handsome. Even after Yi Shiwen supervised handsome men and beautiful women, he had to admit that this man was indeed very handsome. Behind him, there was a little loli who looked about 13 or 14 years old. She looked very small, but her figure was very hot. Her pair of breasts seemed to burst the entire clothes. Yi Shiwen only thought of 2 words, a child's face and big breasts. Yes, this is my friend from the Flourished Cloud Sea region, Yi Shiwen, Jian Wushuang replied. These are my partners, Gao Xian, Sai Qian, and Miao Sisi. Then, Jian Wushuang looked at Yi Qianqian. He did not know what her relationship with Yi Shiwen was. Was she a slave? It did not look like it, because Yi Qianqian and Yi Shiwen were sitting together. They looked more like a pair of friends, not the kind of relationship between a master and a servant. Yi Qianqian. Yi Qianqian opened her mouth slightly and said. She seemed a bit indifferent and distant. Perhaps it was because she had always been like this and was used to it, so she was not a very enthusiastic person. Wow, big sister, you're so beautiful! The little loli, Miao Sisi, exclaimed and came to Yi Qianqian's side with a face full of surprise. Although Yi Shiwen knew that Miao Sisi might be hundreds of years old, but looking at such a cute little face, he couldn't help but reveal a smile. It was as if he had returned to Earth. Only there could he see such a scene. Of course, compared to Miao Sisi's long lifespan, a few hundred years old was not even as old as a few years old for an ordinary person. Yi Shiwen suddenly felt much better when he thought about it. The incongruity of the scene immediately disappeared, and he felt much better. He looked at Yi Qianqian again. She still seemed indifferent. It was obviously unrealistic to expect her to say something like, "Little sister, you're also very beautiful," or something like that. Yi Qianqian was not cold to outsiders except for a few words with him. However, she still maintained the appearance of 1,000 miles away. He immediately said, "Are you also here for the treasure map?" As soon as Yi Shiwen said this, Jian Wushuang and the others immediately became serious. Their state was completely different from before. Chapter 1075. The expressions of several people suddenly became a little tense, but they immediately relaxed because it was not a secret. Among the outsiders recently, 8 out of 10 came for this treasure map. Seeing their expressions, Yi Shiwen knew that he had guessed correctly. He continued to ask, "Since you are here for this treasure map, do you know what the treasure mentioned in this treasure map is?" Jian Wushuang shook his head and said, "We are not very clear about the specifics. It may be a relic left by the experts who entered the blood world a long time ago. It is said that it may be related to the legendary Blood Alliance." Blood Alliance? Yi Shiwen asked curiously. He did not know about this name. This Blood Alliance is a very ancient organization. It is even older than the time when our Flourished Cloud Sea region joined the Blood World trial, so it is normal that you don't know. Jian Wushuang was startled and immediately said with a smile, "A long, long time ago, there was a very terrifying behemoth-like organization in the Blood World. You should know that after entering the Blood World, If you can't leave within 3 years, then you will stay here forever? Jian Wushuang asked. Yi Shiwen nodded and immediately reacted. Then you mean this blood alliance, and… Jian Wushuang nodded. Yes, this blood alliance is an organization established by those who stayed in the blood world to prolong their lives. These people should have died one by one in hundreds of years, but I don't know what method they used to make them, who should have died, live until the next opening of the blood world. Although they couldn't leave the blood world, they also became the masters of the blood world. At that time, all those who entered the blood world had to live under their despotic power and tremble. Yi Shiwen listened quietly. Although it was only a few words, he could feel the boundless despair. A blood curtain descended and enveloped the entire blood world. Although he had never seen the members of the Blood Alliance, he could totally imagine that this organization was definitely not just a self-help organization. Those who were locked in the blood world, unable to get out in this lifetime, and constantly faced the threat of death, these people who survived in such a situation were almost no different from lunatics. No matter how one looked at it, an organization formed by such a group of lunatics or psychopaths would not be a peaceful, harmonious, and friendly organization. Gradually, more and more people were forced to stay in the blood world. In the end, when all the sea areas were about to give up on the blood world, they suddenly declined and disappeared overnight. That's why they didn't cause a huge disaster, Jian Wushuang said. Yi Shiwen nodded. Those who could enter this place were all top elites without exception. These people had experienced hundreds of years. So, it could be said that they had an overwhelming advantage in the face of the experts of the younger generation after hundreds of years. It was as if Yi Shiwen was facing himself from hundreds of years ago. He didn't even need to fight. His imposing aura alone was enough to shock him to death. Although it was in the blood world, with the talents of these young experts, there were probably experts who had surpassed the law phase realm. With such strength, it was not surprising that they could rule the entire blood world in the past. However, there were also many hidden problems. For example, how did they survive? Once they were assimilated into the blood world and became the creatures of the blood world, they would die of old age at a speed that was dozens of times faster than usual. Basically, they would die before the next opening of the blood world. So, many people had never seen these people. They only heard about the existence of these people from their elders. They knew that some people didn't leave the blood world and became like this. It was precisely because of this that people were even more curious about how they managed to survive and why they had fallen overnight. These were all questions that made people curious. If it was just a ruin left by the predecessors, Yi Shiwen wouldn't even look at it. He would leave on the spot. After all, even the experts from tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years ago were at most similar to them now. There was nothing to see at all. However, if it was the Blood Alliance, then it was different. Not to mention how powerful the geniuses in the Blood Alliance who had lived for many years would become. Besides, the fact that Blood Alliance had managed to survive was itself a question that piqued their curiosity. And this time, although there is no news about the treasure map, there is indeed news that it may be a base of the Blood Alliance, Jian Wushuang said. If that's the case, then we can't not go and take a look. Yi Shiwen's eyes lit up and said, Since you are a friend of Jian Wushuang, then you are also our friend. If you also plan to explore that base, then you can ask us for it, Gao Xian said. Yi Shiwen nodded. He didn't think that there was anything wrong with it. He looked at Yi Qianqian again. If there were so many people, then protecting Yi Qianqian wouldn't be a problem. If it was really not possible, then she could be kept in the Tianyuan mirror. After getting along with her for such a long time, Yi Shiwen had gradually started to trust Yi Qianqian. He believed in his own judgment. Moreover, even Yemo, an old ghost who had lived for God knows how many years, also said that she was trustworthy. Then, there was nothing to worry about. Even if there was something wrong, they could easily destroy it. So, there was nothing to be afraid of. But even so, no one was in a hurry to rush out. Instead, they quietly waited in an inn, waiting for the location of the treasure map to be found by someone. Yishiwen increasingly felt that this matter was not simple. But regardless of whether there was someone behind the scenes or not, there were more and more experts in Xianyang City now. So, it was only a matter of time before they were found. Since someone was willing to do it for them, everyone naturally wasn't so nervous. And time also passed while they were waiting. Another half a month had passed. More and more experts came to Xianyang City because of the treasure map. And those experts who had arrived earlier were getting more and more impatient, because even if they had the treasure map, there was no way to find the location of the treasure map. At this time, everyone had become competitors. Many people were very interested in the legendary existence of the Blood Union. Although the Blood Union had been destroyed for many years, but these days, the legend of the Blood Union had begun to gradually revive along with the spread of the treasure map. Many people had begun to become interested in who could establish such a terrifying organization in the blood world. All of them were heaven's proud sons and daughters. Each of them was fearless and lawless. At this time, they wanted to find the base of the Blood Union by themselves, and then monopolize all the benefits. Perhaps, their cultivation would also improve by leaps and bounds when that time came. At this time, only they were on the same side. Other people were competitors or even enemies. Even the internal conflicts of the major sea regions had begun. After all, although they could be regarded as members of the same country in the blood world, but outside the blood world, they were competitors. Moreover, they were the fiercest competitors. Even the competition between the major forces of the major sea regions had become a mess. Many people seemed to have found some clues, but they were found dead on the spot the next day. This further aggravated the chaos in the Xianyang city. Yishiwen and others could only wait quietly, lurk, and practice at this time. Because there were too many strong people in the Xianyang city at this time. It was not suitable for them to stand out. Not to mention other things, just the experts of law manifestation realm had appeared. In addition to the high-level leaders of the Xianyang Sea region, the high-level leaders of several other large sea regions had also appeared. This had made the atmosphere of the entire Xianyang city tense all of a sudden. Many people suddenly found that they didn't know who to trust. It seemed that they couldn't trust anyone. Everything had become muddled for the sake of the Blood Union's base. It seemed as if there was a big hand behind them stirring up everything, making the water in the pool become muddy. Yishiwen and others were aware of this. However, the others were not fools. Not to mention that all the people here were elites. How many of them were fools? Many people had also seen this unusual place. However, even if they knew that the wisest way was to leave the Xianyang city. No matter what kind of conspiracy or crafty plot was involved, it would be impossible to plot against them. However, whether it was the human race or the sea race, greed was their nature. They knew that there might be danger, but they couldn't let go of the Blood Union's base and the many treasures inside it. Therefore, even though they knew that there might be a force manipulating everything, no one chose to leave. Perhaps, they were too confident that their own forces could crush all conspiracies and crafty plots. These people were Heaven's Pride experts. If they didn't even have this much self-confidence, then they wouldn't have been able to reach where they were today. This was a world where the strong got stronger and the weak got weaker. If they wanted to climb up and climb above everyone's head, then they might have died long ago if they didn't have the confidence to fight for their lives. All of this, even Yishiwen was no exception. Yishiwen rarely suppressed the existence of this desire because this desire and obsession itself was the only driving force for him to become stronger. It might also be the only goal in the future. However, he was more rational. He believed in his own strength. Even if a Transcendence Realm expert attacked him, as long as he wasn't seriously injured from the sneak attack, he would be able to escape. If he thought it was a matter of life and death, he wouldn't take the risk easily. Yishiwen wasn't the only one. Other people were also like this. It was just that some people overestimated themselves. And some people were estimating their own strength just right. Just when these people began to get a little impatient, and some impatient people were already preparing to leave, the news about the hidden treasure finally spread. Chapter 1076. Someone found the entrance to a base in a mountain range. It was extremely old, and had been sealed by a powerful formation. As soon as the news spread, it shocked the entire Xianyang city. "It's finally here! I've been holding it in for so long. I hope it's true. Otherwise, I'll strangle the guy who spread the rumor. The Blood Alliance's base is mine!" As the news spread, experts from all walks of life in Xianyang City rushed to the mountain range where the base's entrance was rumored to be found. Naturally, this included Yi Shiwen and the others. Although there weren't many people in this team, no one would think of finding trouble with them after seeing their valiant strength. After spending some time together, Yi Shiwen also discovered that Unparalleled Sword's friends were relatively easy to get along with. They did not put on airs and did not look down on Yi Shiwen because he was only in the Transcendent Realm 9th level. Unparalleled Sword didn't seem to have the intention to explain for Yi Shiwen either. They didn't seem to know how much strength Yi Shiwen had now. In their opinion, Yi Shiwen was just an ordinary Transcendent Realm 9th level. They were only willing to accept him because of his friends in the flourished Cloud Sea region where Yi Shiwen used to be. Yi Shiwen did not say anything in this regard. These things were not important to him at all. On the contrary, everyone's friendship was more genuine because of this. It was not just because of Unparalleled Sword. "Big sister, don't worry. When we enter the base, Cece will protect you." Miao Cece still liked to pester Yi Qianqian. Even if Yi Qianqian had a distant expression most of the time, Miao Cece did not mind. Although Miao Cece was a few hundred years old, she still behaved like a 10-year-old girl. She did not know why, but she liked this beautiful big sister. These days, Yi Qianqian's attitude had softened a little. She only smiled slightly and nodded, looking indifferent. "Don't worry. There shouldn't be many opponents in the base this time. Unless those few law manifestation experts attack us, there's nothing to be afraid of," Saiki Yen said confidently. "We should be able to obtain a lot of treasures in the Blood Alliance's base this time. Whoever dares to compete with us is seeking death." Although Saiki Yen looked handsome and even a little feminine, he appeared unusually heroic at this time. Yi Shiwen nodded. Even without considering his hidden strength, this team was still very powerful. Unless they encountered those law manifestation realm masters, there would generally not be any difficult situation to deal with. As everyone approached the mountain range, they found more and more experts gathered together. Those who could head to the mountain range to search for the Blood Alliance's base at this time were very confident. Their strength was superb. Even if it was a Transcendent Realm 9th level warrior, they could contend with and even kill a half-step law manifestation realm initial warrior. Geniuses like Jian Wushuang and young Master Sea Dragon were the same. The others were experts above half-step manifestation realm initial. With these geniuses gathered here, it was a feast for the eyes. Some of them even had the strength of half-step law phase late stage. They formed teams of 2s and 3s, and they were not much weaker than Yi Shiwen's team. They were the leaders of many medium-sized sea regions, and every one of them was a rare genius. Although there was a difference in the strength of these people, it was because of the unfair distribution of resources in the past. In terms of talent, no one was stronger than the other. Other than a few monstrous geniuses, there was not much difference in the rest. In this blood world, one could encounter a fortuitous encounter at any time to reverse the situation. So, a momentary difference didn't mean anything. Yi Shiwen secretly marveled. These experts were more terrifying than the other. In the flourished Cloud Sea region, Crown Prince Crocodile was already astonishingly strong. However, compared with these people in front of him, he seemed to be inferior. Even if Crown Prince Crocodile was not dead, he would be at half-step manifestation realm initial at most at this time. At most, he would be at half-step manifestation realm intermediate. Compared with these ruthless experts at half-step manifestation realm peak late, there was a huge gap. Many people were like Yi Shiwen and the others when they were in the profound Yang City. They were hiding in the inns, and had restrained their aura. So, no one knew their strength. However, many people couldn't hold back when they saw the appearance of the Blood Union's base at this time. So, they came out one after another. This created an illusion that there were many experts here. Not only Xianyang Sea region, but many experts from other sea regions and other cities also came over. In the distance, Yishuan also saw a few small groups. They were very tyrannical. They were in groups of 2 or 3. They were all half-step manifestation realm late experts. These people were extremely arrogant and didn't interact with others at all. With their strength, 2 of them joined forces to fight against dozens of half-step manifestation realm intermediate experts. They were all outstanding and ruthless characters. "The experts from Xianyang Sea region are here!" someone shouted. Suddenly, the entire crowd in the air was stirred up. As the ruler of Xianyang City, Xianyang Sea region was also one of the few powerful forces in the large sea regions. At this time, their appearance suddenly caused a commotion in the crowd. However, they saw dozens of people directly stepping on streams of light and flying over the crowd. The vast momentum was far beyond everyone's imagination. The leader was a young expert in a purple robe. He was in high spirits and had an extraordinary bearing. Soon, someone recognized him. This was the city lord of Xianyang City, Gongsun Juanhao. He was another terrifying figure. It was said that he had entered the law manifestation realm a long time ago. Yishuan looked over. Sure enough, Gongsun Juanhao's body was surging with a different fluctuation of qi from the others. It was unlike these half-step manifestation realm experts. It was the qi fluctuation of a true law manifestation realm expert. Among the younger generation experts, there was actually someone who could enter the law manifestation realm at such a young age. It had to be said that the Endless Sea region was really full of experts. If it was in the true martial domain, it would be unimaginable. Even Big Brother Huang Wuji and the others would not be much stronger than these people in the Endless Sea region. They were the top geniuses. Any sea region in the Endless Sea region was probably as big as the true martial domain. Naturally, the experts in a small place like the true martial domain could not be compared to them. In addition to Gongsun Juanhao, behind him, there were more than a dozen half-step manifestation realm experts in the late stage and more half-step manifestation realm experts in the middle stage. The strength and foundation of a large sea region were fully reflected at this moment. One must know that Sky Thunder Sea region could be considered as the top among the medium-sized sea regions. However, it only had Hao Tsung, a half-step manifestation realm expert. In the Endless Sea region, although there were only a few levels of sea regions, the difference in strength between each level of sea region was not 1 or 2 times, but 10 times or even dozens of times. In addition to the 4 super sea regions, these large sea regions were the lords and overlords of the Endless Sea region. The group of people from the Xianyang Sea region quickly disappeared in front of everyone. Their escape light was even faster. Everyone was not willing to be outdone. They all rode on the escape light and followed closely behind. In less than a quarter of an hour, everyone had arrived at the mountain range where the base was rumored to be. Boom! 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 Loud explosions came from inside the mountain range. After a while, there was news that the experts from the 4 large sea regions had arrived one step ahead of everyone and opened the seal of the base. When everyone heard this, they immediately became anxious and rushed forward. Although it was a good thing that the experts from the large sea regions opened the seal first, it also meant that they were lagging behind the experts from the large sea regions. If they were too far behind, they might not even be able to pick up the leftovers, which would really be a waste of their efforts. Thinking of this, everyone's escape light sped up a bit, and immediately arrived at the huge hole that had been blasted open. The hole seemed to be filled with terrifying miasma because of the countless years of closure. This miasma looked inconspicuous, but if an ordinary metal or stone was thrown into it, it would not take long for it to melt into liquid. But at this time, everyone did not care so much. They all displayed their own magical powers. Some propped up their own protective cover, while others put their celestial devices on top of their heads. Innately, they were invincible. These were all outstanding experts from various clans, each with their own means. It was unknown how many cave mansions they had explored, so it could be said that they were already rich in experience. "Let's go! Let's rush in!" Jian Wuxuang shouted and directly rushed in like a sharp sword. The sword chi on his body directly split the miasma in half and dissipated instantly, unable to get close to them. Yi Shiwen and others also followed behind Jian Wuxuang. With the protection of Jian Wuxuang's sword chi, they did not open their own protective covers. Yi Shiwen did not care. Even if the miasma covered his body, it could not break the defense of his tyrant body and hurt his body. Everyone rushed into the cave, and everything in front of them suddenly turned dark. They saw that the cave was pitch black. There was no light at all. It was like a huge black hole. Even if light entered, it would not be able to escape the fate of being sucked in. Everyone had to move their real vitality to their eyes to barely see the situation in the cave. But when they saw the situation in the cave clearly, they were suddenly a little dumbfounded. Chapter 1077. In front of them was an extremely spacious underground hall. The entire hall was hundreds of meters high and thousands of kilometers in length and width. However, this was not a problem. The real problem was that at the other end of this hall, there were hundreds and thousands of uncountable forks. There were thousands of entrances in thousands of kilometers, and no one knew where they led to. Everyone was a little dumbfounded. There were thousands of entrances. Which one should they go? Which one was right? Everyone murmured in their hearts. They were very clear that not all of these thousands of forks would lead to the base. It would be extremely amazing if only 1/10 of the forks led to the base. In other words, the remaining 9 out of 10 would most likely lead to a dead end. This was also a very common way to avoid enemy attacks. Just these many forks were enough to make everyone confused. Unless the people of the Blood Union came back to life, otherwise, it would be impossible to figure out whether these forks were safe or not. According to this estimation, among these people, perhaps less than half of them would be able to reach the base through the passage. This was undoubtedly a very terrifying proportion. And at this time, a burly man took the lead and shouted, "I don't care. If you want to be wishy-washy here, then do as you please. I only know that if we don't go in, those benefits will be taken away by the experts of the 4 major sea regions. We will have come here in vain." After saying that, this person only slightly identified the forks, then immediately chose a path and rushed in. Seeing this burly man's words, everyone suddenly became a little excited. At this time, there were more and more voices behind them. More and more people rushed in from outside the mountain range. At this time, it was a good thing to be ahead of anyone. Many people immediately did not think too much. One after another, they chose a fork and rushed in. If they knew that this place would be so troublesome before coming here, perhaps many of them would not have come. However, things had already come to this point. Many of them had also wasted so much time and energy for this. They were simply reluctant to give up. Yi Shiwen and the others looked at each other, and found the same meaning in each other's eyes. That was to rush in. "We have already come here. We can't retreat." Miao Sisi opened her mouth and said at this time. This made Yi Shiwen somewhat surprised. Miao Sisi looked a bit weak, but she was an out-and-out heroine. Gao Xian nodded and said, "Sisi is right. Since we are already here, we have to try our best no matter what. I have no objections, I'll go if you guys go." Saika Hao agreed. "Let's go then," Jian Wuxuang said after a moment of silence. "All right." Yi Shiwen opened his mouth and said. He alone represented himself, and Yi Qianqian. At this time, Yi Qianqian naturally wouldn't oppose. Everyone immediately took the lead and leaped out. Yi Shiwen was the fastest. He took Yi Qianqian with him and directly pointed to a path and said, "This path, go!" His speed suddenly became so fast. At this time, several people were somewhat surprised. Because among these people, except for Yi Qianqian, it seemed that his strength was the lowest. How could such a person with such low strength be so fast? Could it be that this was his specialty? However, at this time, everyone was a little hesitant. Although they had decided to rush in, they also had to choose a good path. Otherwise, if they dived headfirst into a dead end, it would really be a dead end. Even if they could retreat in one piece, it would also waste a lot of time. Now, wasn't time what everyone was fighting for? If they were left behind by too much, they might not be able to eat the leftovers when the time came. That would be miserable. Although they had a good relationship with Yishiwen during this period of time, it was only because he was Jian Wushuang's friend. It was not because they recognized his strength. While they were still hesitating, Jian Wushuang did not have any hesitation and followed them. Because among these people, he was the only one who knew that Yishiwen's strength was far more than what it seemed on the surface. Since Yishiwen had chosen this path, there must be a reason, and it would not be a random choice. Although Gao Xian and the other two were still hesitating, at this time, seeing that Jian Wushuang had already taken the lead, they naturally could not fall behind. At this time, they could only grit their teeth and follow. In just a moment, everyone had already rushed into the entire cave fork for a long distance. Yishiwen also slowed down to let Jian Wushuang and the others catch up. "Why did you choose this path?" Jian Wushuang asked. Several people behind him also stared at Yishiwen with burning eyes. Although they had a good relationship with Yishiwen, if Yishiwen could not come up with a convincing reason, they were afraid that they would turn around and leave on the spot. "That's because this road is filled with life energy. Many of these roads are filled with deathly energy. I don't know how many people have died here, but this road is relatively weak, so the probability of this road being the road to survival is relatively high," Yishiwen indifferently said. When all living creatures were alive, they would have a qi of qi. The more vigorous the qi of qi, the stronger the person was. Once this person's qi weakened, it meant that this person was sick or injured. And those dead things would also have a strong death qi. The more dead things there were, the more abundant the death qi would be. For many warriors, learning to look at qi was also a basic method to distinguish the strength of a person. The more tyrannical a person was, the more tyrannical his qi would be, which would make people shudder when they looked at it from afar. Everyone suddenly realized that it seemed to be the case. They could also distinguish qi of qi from death qi, but at that moment, they did not react for a while. Not only did Yishiwen react, but he was also able to accurately choose such a path. Sure enough, he had some skills. Coupled with the speed that Yishiwen had shown before, it also made them have a new feeling of respect for him. Sure enough, he had some skills. The way everyone looked at Yishiwen suddenly changed. Not only because he was Jian Wushuang's friend, but also because he might be a reliable helper. Although it was also possible that the death qi was not strong because fewer people chose this path, so fewer people died, but in general, it was much more reliable than blindly choosing a path. Suddenly, a strange laughter suddenly sounded in the passage. Everyone's heart suddenly became vigilant, and they all propped up their own protective shields. Whoosh! A bloody light lit up in the darkness, and a bloody figure rushed towards Yishiwen, who was at the forefront, and it was also laughing strangely. Yishiwen did not look at it, and directly stretched out his hands. Both of his hands glowed with a golden light, and instantly penetrated the bloody light, and directly grabbed the monster's neck. At this time, everyone finally saw what kind of creature it was. It was a creature that looked like a human with 4 limbs. However, its entire body was blood red, unlike those blood fiends that looked blood red. Instead, it had no skin at all, and its flesh was completely exposed. It was a creature that was dripping with blood. They could only see that its ferocious face looked even more ferocious because Yishiwen was grabbing its neck. The pair of bloody fangs looked even more terrifying, and those terrifying fangs could probably easily bite an ordinary metal into pieces. "This is a blood demon!" Gao Xian immediately recognized them and said. "It is said that when the Blood Alliance was at its peak, they used some kind of secret technique to raise a batch of blood-colored humanoid monsters to fight for them. They conquered one sea region after another and made it their territory. They enslaved the geniuses and experts there. I thought that with the fall of the Blood Alliance, these blood demons should have been wiped out. Why are we still seeing these blood demons now? Yishuan nodded. During this time, he had collected a lot of various information and news about the Blood Alliance, and he naturally heard about this blood demon. It was a terrifying creature that the Blood Alliance used some unknown secret method to feed. These blood demons did not have much intelligence, and only knew how to kill. They were kept in captivity by the Blood Alliance, and their existence was like a thug. However, these blood demons were kept in captivity, so they had no way to hunt for food on their own. Moreover, these blood demons were not divided into male and female. No one knew what secret method was used to feed them. Strictly speaking, they were not living creatures at all, and they could not reproduce. Logically speaking, after the destruction of the Blood Alliance for so many years, even if these blood demons had lived for a long time, they should have been destroyed long ago. Could it be that these blood demons mutated? Did they gain the ability to reproduce? However, at this time, everyone had no time to think about these things. At this time, pairs of blood-red eyes had already stared at them. One after another, blood demons appeared in front of everyone. It was unknown whether there were hundreds or thousands of them. Yishuan casually crushed a blood demon in his hand, and immediately materialized a long sword condensed from sword intent. He instantly pounced and rushed into the blood demons. Puchi! 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 Yishuan's sword light was extremely fast. Wherever it passed, the blood demons could only clutch their necks and watch as blood spurted out. They died immediately. There was no other way. At this time, apart from Miao Sisi, who had to take care of Yi Qianqian and did not go far, everyone else rushed into the blood demon horde. Most of these blood demons were only in the transcendent realm 9th level realm. They were not enough to pose much of a threat to everyone. Whoosh! Si Kuoyan shot another arrow, nailing a blood demon to the ground. Seeing the blood demon rolling on the ground in pain, a smug smile appeared on his face. What's wrong? Do blood demons feel pain too? Chapter 1078. Ha! Siko Hao laughed loudly. In midair, his hands were constantly in the posture of pulling a bow and shooting arrows. Each arrow shot would nail a blood demon to death on the spot. The others were also slaughtering crazily. Although there were many blood demons, their strength was far from being a match for them. They could not pose too much of a problem to these people at all. In other words, they could not stop these people's advancement at all. Whoosh! 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 The sword aura in Yishuan's hand directly swept up. The blood demons that pounced on him could not stop his footsteps at all. Although they were all in the transcendent realm 9th level realm, those blood demons were no match for Yishuan at all. They couldn't even withstand a single move from Yishuan. They were easily slaughtered by Yishuan like ants. They had no power to fight back at all. Such efficiency was not slow compared to them. At this time, Gao Xian and the others were also impressed by Yishuan. Although he was at the Transcendent Realm 9th level, he was obviously not an ordinary Transcendent Realm 9th level expert. He was like those geniuses who could contend with half-step law manifestation initial Transcendent Realm 9th level experts. At this time, everyone seemed to understand why a steady person like Jian Wushuang would actually agree to join Yishuan. As for them, they didn't really know Yishuan. They just took Yishuan with them for Jian Wushuang's sake. However, at this time, only Jian Wushuang knew that Yishuan's strength was far more than that. Half a year ago, when he had just entered the blood world, he could already slaughter experts at the early stage of the half-step law manifestation realm. After half a year, his strength was much more tyrannical than before. How could he still be at the same level as half a year ago? This was the real reason why Jian Wushuang brought Yishuan along. In his opinion, Yishuan would not become a burden to them. Sure enough, Yishuan's strength was far more tyrannical than before. These Transcendent Realm 9th level blood demons could not even withstand a single move from him. The half-step law manifestation leaders mixed among these blood demons could not stop the slaughter of these ferocious beings at all. They were directly beheaded. Roar! A sharp roar came from the darkness. A tall blood-red figure pounced on Jian Wuxuang, who was at the forefront of the group. His claws tore through the sky and his blood chi vibrated violently. Jian Wuxuang was shocked. This was another powerful big guy. Judging from his cultivation, he should have reached the peak of the half-step to the late stage of the law manifestation realm, which was not much lower than these people. Human! Human! That was exactly what the big guy was mumbling. It seemed to have some intelligence, which was different from the other blood demons that only knew how to kill. Jian Wuxuang suddenly waved his long sword and a sharp sword chi slashed out. Clang! The terrifying sword chi instantly clashed with the pair of claw shadows. The pair of claw shadows directly tore apart the sword chi and was about to pounce on Jian Wuxuang. Jian Wuxuang also frowned. This blood demon was much more powerful than the others. At this time, Yi Shiwen finally made his move. Clang! The sword light was like a dream. It instantly formed a sword net and completely enveloped Jian Wuxuang. Boom! Yi Shiwen directly repelled the bloody claws of the blood shadow. So fast! Miao Sisi and others looked at Yi Shiwen in surprise. The blood demon's movement was so fast that they had no time to rescue Jian Wuxuang. Although Jian Wuxuang would not be killed by this attack, it was a very terrible thing to be injured in such a place. Who knew that at this time Yi Shiwen, who was next to Jian Wuxuang, made a move and saved Jian Wuxuang. His speed was extremely fast. Most importantly, he could repel this attack. At this time, if everyone still could not see that Yi Shiwen was hiding his strength, they would be too blind. At this time, they suddenly remembered that when Jian Wuxuang introduced Yi Shiwen, he said that Yi Shiwen was the number one among the younger generation in the flourished Cloud Sea region, but almost no one believed it at the time. Many people thought that Jian Wuxuang was being modest. In a small sea region like the flourished Cloud Sea region, it was already rare to have someone like Jian Wuxuang. At this time, they heard that Jian Wuxuang was not the number one among the younger generation, but Yi Shiwen. Moreover, Yi Shiwen was only a transcendent round 9th level warrior. How could they believe it? Or, in their opinion, it was because Jian Wuxuang did not fight with him. Jian Wuxuang also said that it was a pity that he did not have the chance to fight with Yi Shiwen. In their opinion, if Jian Wuxuang fought with Yi Shiwen would not be his opponent. This was inevitable. But now it seemed that it was not what they thought at all. Jian Wuxuang was right. The Yi Shiwen in front of them was extraordinary. Even if they had not seen each other for more than half a year, his strength did not decrease but increased instead. Yi Shiwen did not know the surprise in everyone's heart at this time. He just used his sword to deflect the attack of the pair of bloody claws. But before he could take a breath, the bloody claws directly grabbed him. This pair of bloody claws only left a bloody afterimage in the sky. In an instant, it had already rushed in front of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen did not panic at all. He just casually swept the iron sword in his hand, but it instantly swept away the pair of extremely fast bloody claws. Ah! The blood demon was blocked by Yi Shiwen's sword aura. This time, it was not a hasty interception like before. Blood splattered immediately. These blood demons were born without skin. They looked abnormally ferocious, as if a person's skin was peeled off. It made people's scalp tingle. But at this time, the sword aura on the pair of bloody claws swept away a large part of the flesh. The white bones were almost visible. Trap him! Don't let him escape! At this time, Jian Wuxuang also joined the battle group. There was almost no hesitation. He could not let this blood demon escape. Now he was not thinking about whether he could defeat this blood demon. With so many people with the battle strength of half-step to law manifestation realm late stage, if they were defeated by this blood demon, then they really deserved to die. The only thing he thought about now was to not let this blood demon escape. Don't worry, he can't escape, Yi Shiwen sneered. The iron sword crossed the sky, and his body followed the sword. He was like a ghost in the space, and in an instant, he had already fought in front of this blood demon. There was a bit of fear on this blood demon's face. He did not expect Yi Shiwen's counterattack to come so quickly. If his attack was a bit of a sneak attack, then Yi Shiwen's attack was a pure frontal surprise attack. But what was more terrifying was that Yi Shiwen's frontal surprise attack was actually faster than his sneak attack. The sword aura directly cut a large piece of flesh from his body. If he had not dodged fast enough, then Yi Shiwen's sword would have pierced through him. Even if Yi Shiwen did not unfold the demon wings, in terms of speed, he was still firmly suppressing this blood demon. However, he was not so lucky. Although he dodged Yi Shiwen's attack, Jian Wushuang's sword aura immediately slashed down. Jian Wushuang, who had been waiting for a long time, attacked with an indomitable will. Although it could not be said to be more exquisite than Yi Shiwen's swordsmanship, it was different from Yi Shiwen, who was a half-baked warrior. He was a pure sword cultivator. With a sword in hand, he could control the world. Compared to Yi Shiwen, who did not use his full strength, he was probably even stronger. In this respect, Yi Shiwen could not compare with Jian Wushuang, but he did not mean to compare. Compared with a pure sword cultivator like Jian Wushuang, he was just using all the advantageous martial arts. Bang! Jian Wushuang's sword aura smashed into his body, directly injuring the blood demon, and the terrifying force directly blasted him away. Although this blood demon was not very intelligent, he also understood that this time he might have encountered a group of opponents that he could not deal with at all. "Where are you going?" Yi Shiwen sneered. A flame burned in his hand, and a mass of saber chi instantly formed. It directly crossed the sky and slashed down. The saber aura cut the sky and instantly blasted into the body of the blood demon. Bang! The blood demon's body exploded on the spot. Blood splashed out, and it was directly chopped into pieces. Without the command of this blood demon commander, the remaining hundreds of blood demons finally could not suppress the fear in their hearts and fled one after another. However, no one was in the mood to chase after these hundreds of blood demons. For them, racing against time was much more important than anything else. These blood demons were not that important. "It seems that we have all underestimated Brother Yi," Gao Xian said with a wry smile and cupped his hands. It was not because of anything else, but because he had been reminding himself not to underestimate others. Otherwise, sooner or later, he would suffer a big loss. However, he still underestimated Yi Shiwen. Or it could be said that he did not expect that there would be such a monstrous existence like Yi Shiwen. Generally speaking, it was already very amazing to be able to challenge someone of a higher level. This was because those who could challenge someone of a higher level were not ordinary experts, but the top geniuses. In their opinion, this was simply impossible. However, after the fight just now, they found that Yi Shiwen's battle strength was at least at the level of half-step to law manifestation realm late stage. At this time, they really regarded Yi Shiwen as a companion of the same level, not as simple as Jian Wushuang's friend. Yi Shiwen smiled indifferently. As long as he was strong enough, the opinions of others were not so important. "Why didn't you tell me that you are so powerful?" Miao Sisi looked at Yi Shiwen with dissatisfaction and said, "I thought you were weak, and I wanted to protect you." Yi Shiwen did not know whether to laugh or cry. Did he have to announce this to everyone? Well, now is not the time to talk about this. "We have to catch up quickly," Jian Wushuang said. "Yes. Yes." Chapter 1079. This passage was neither long nor short. In addition to the blood demon, there were some other dangers, but it was nothing for Yi Shiwen and the others now. There were just some traps on the left and right. Yi Shiwen and the others quickly passed through the entire passage. Once they passed through the tunnel, what entered the group's eyes was an incredibly large underground world. Blood Alliance had gone through many years of activities before they managed to dig out such a large world underground. It could practically no longer be considered a base. It should be said that it was a small world. Yi Shiwen and the others weren't the first wave of experts to arrive. Countless experts had already poured in by the time they arrived. Some of them had even started to fight in order to snatch some rare herbs, treasures, and so on. After entering this place, everyone could no longer hold back. They began to fight frantically and plunder the wealth. No one knew how many years had passed since someone came here. It could be said that wealth was everywhere. There was wealth everywhere that made people envious. Suddenly, there was a commotion in front. A bloodstone mineral vein! These few words made everyone go crazy. What was the most important thing in the blood world? Naturally, it was the bloodstone. The bloodstone was the currency of the entire blood world. It could even be said that the value of the bloodstone would only be higher in the outside world. However, the bloodstone mineral vein was relatively rare even in the entire blood realm. The blood chi was scattered throughout the entire sky. Although it had been eroding everything in the blood realm, there were few things that could attract the blood chi. It was not like the spiritual energy that could form mineral veins. It could only condense into bloodstones. Yu Shiwen looked around and saw a huge bloodstone mineral vein. He didn't know how many bloodstones were piled up on it. He also didn't know how many years had passed. Those bloodstones had also solidified together, forming a huge bloodstone mineral vein. These bloodstone mineral veins roughly looked more than 10 million bloodstone mineral veins. Although it was not too much, it was only the beginning of the exploration. So many bloodstones could be found. For these people, it was also a considerable wealth, especially for those transcendent realm 9th level warriors. They might only have hundreds of thousands of bloodstones. Suddenly, a bloodstone mineral vein of more than 10 million appeared in front of them. At this time, how could they miss it? Suddenly, hundreds of thousands of big hands grabbed out in the sky, all grabbing the bloodstone mineral vein. With so many people competing, only a few people could get it in the end. These people either grabbed millions of bloodstones or hundreds of thousands of bloodstones. The remaining part was divided equally by others. These were half-step law manifestation realm late experts. With them taking action, the others could only get some leftovers. This is only the periphery. There must be great wealth inside. Let's go, said Jian Wushuang. Without any hesitation, they followed into the depths of this microcosm. There must be benefits in the periphery, but it was only a little. Compared with the benefits inside, it was certainly not worth mentioning. They didn't see any late-stage Transcendence Realm experts. Only a few weaker ones were fighting with those people outside. Most of the experts were flying inside. At their level, they had a lot of wealth. Hundreds of thousands or millions of bloodstones would not stop their footsteps at all. Although this microcosm was only a microcosm, it was vast and boundless at a glance. As everyone approached the depths of the microcosm, many blood beasts and blood beasts began to appear intermittently. They were in groups, which was very terrifying. They encountered another group of blood beasts. To be precise, it was an army of blood beasts. They were completely different from the blood beasts in the passageway just now. Each of them was in the half-step law manifestation realm. No one knew whether there were thousands or tens of thousands of them. They surrounded everyone. If those transcendent realm 9th level warriors were here, even if they could contend with half-step law manifestation realm early experts, they would be annihilated in the face of such a terrifying number of blood beasts. These blood beasts had a pair of wings on their ribs. Each of them was more than 2 meters tall. Their skin seemed to have been peeled off. They advanced and retreated in an orderly manner. They were a well-trained army. Each of the blood demons possessed terrifying strength. Now all of them were in a military formation, surrounding Lin Fan. Why are these blood beasts so powerful? Siko Hao constantly opened his arms and shot chi arrows. Each arrow nailed a blood beast to the ground on the spot. However, he could still feel the true strength of these blood beasts. They were incomparable to those in the passageway. I'm afraid that these are the elite soldiers of the Blood Demon Legion, said Gao Xian, looking at the dense blood beasts in front of him. In the past, the blood beasts that the Blood Alliance relied on to dominate the world are also divided into several levels. The ones we encountered in the passageway are just small fries, not worth mentioning. These are the true elites. All of them are composed of half-step law manifestation realm experts. It is even said that there's a blood demon imperial guard that is truly terrifying. Any random soldier is in the law manifestation realm. Even we are no match for them. However, they were completely annihilated in that great turmoil. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard it. The Blood Alliance's Imperial Guard was a little too terrifying with law manifestation realm experts as mere soldiers. Even with their current strength, if they encountered a law manifestation realm expert, they could only flee. However, there was actually someone who could order them around like soldiers. This was undoubtedly beyond everyone's imagination. I don't know how those blood beasts were raised. They just feel a little weird, Meow Cece said with a frown and curled her small mouth. Everyone had the same feeling in their hearts. However, the Blood Alliance had already been annihilated in the dust of history. Even if they wanted to find out, they could not. In any case, we have to move forward. Let's kill this wave of blood beasts first, said Jian Wuxuang. The long sword in his hand emitted a terrifying sword light, which directly cut several blood beasts in half. Although everyone was very strong, there was nothing they could do in the face of these endless blood demons. This was because these blood demons seemed to be controlled, and they rushed forward fearlessly. It was almost endless. At least, everyone seemed to be unable to see the end. Yishiwen also constantly operated the observing person scripture in his body. The power of stars in his body constantly splashed out and turned into stars, smashing into the blood beasts. Every time he punched, he could take away a large number of blood beasts' lives. These blood beasts that were killed by him would be blasted into blood mist on the spot, and then absorbed by Tianyuan Mirror in Yishiwen's body. Now, Tianyuan Mirror was at the most critical moment of upgrading to an Earth-level celestial device. It needed a lot of flesh and blood to replenish. For Yishiwen, these blood beasts were simply a great tonic that came to his door. It was just right. His shattering stardust fist paid particular attention to destruction and great destruction. It could destroy everything cleanly. Just a casual punch could clean up an area. These blood beasts did not have blood cores, but it did not prevent the huge amount of blood essence in their bodies from becoming a great tonic for Tianyuan Mirror. If one could see into Yishiwen's body at this time, one would definitely see a mirror floating up and down in it. The back of the mirror seemed to be depicting a hellish world. Countless demons were howling and killing in it. It was a living hell on earth. It seemed to be the situation of the ancient devil world. At that time, the devil world had no civilization. All the major races only knew how to kill. Tianyuan Mirror itself began to emit a bloody light, illuminating Yishiwen's entire Dantian. These blood beasts are very troublesome. I don't know how long it will take to kill them all, Yishiwen began to think. Although it was really cool to kill these blood demons, and Tianyuan Mirror could benefit a lot from it, it was obvious that compared with the things in the depths of this microcosm, these things were nothing. They must not be delayed by these blood demons. Thinking of this, Yishiwen did not care so much and immediately rushed directly into the group of blood beasts. When these blood beasts saw that Yishiwen actually dared to rush in, they suddenly rushed towards him with a strange cry, and instantly drowned Yishiwen. Human, TSK, I haven't eaten human flesh for a long time. It's a great tonic. The blood and chi of these human beings are extremely vigorous. They are all geniuses. As long as I can devour them, my strength will soar by hundreds of years. Not all of the blood beasts had no spiritual wisdom. There were some who obviously had some wisdom. They were all the leaders of the blood beasts. At this time, they began to become extremely excited. Yishiwen? At this time, everyone realized that Yishiwen had actually jumped into the group of blood beasts. Immediately, they became anxious. The struggle between quantity and quality had always been there. Strong quality could ignore quantity, but similarly, large quantity could also tear apart the side that had the advantage of quality. Although any one of them was much more powerful than these blood beasts, there were too many of these blood beasts. They did not know whether there were thousands or tens of thousands of blood beasts, which was much more than the number in the passage. If they were not divided and surrounded, they could still fight. But if they were surrounded by these blood beasts, it was almost a matter of survival. How could they not be anxious? Chapter 1080. From their point of view, there was nothing more thrilling than this. Yi Shiwen had actually rushed in. At this moment, they all had the urge to rush into the Blood Demon army and rescue Yi Shiwen. They had not yet been surrounded by the Blood Demon army. Basically, they were fighting and retreating at the same time to avoid being completely trapped. It's okay. Don't worry about him. He is confident. At this moment, Yi Qianqian spoke up. After spending some time with Yi Shiwen, she could be considered to have some understanding of Yi Shiwen. He would rarely do things that he was not sure of. Since he had chosen to crash into the Blood Demon army, he must have some confidence in himself. Yes. Jian Wishuang nodded. He had a lot of impressions of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was mysterious and powerful, but definitely not reckless and idiotic. Don't tell me he is going to kill the commander of the Blood Demon army, Miao Sisi suddenly said. Everyone was a little stunned. But after thinking about it carefully, it seemed that this was the highest possibility. If it were not for this idea, Yi Shiwen would not have rushed into the Blood Demon army. But can he succeed by doing this? It is not an easy task to kill the commander of the Blood Demon army in the midst of so many blood demons, Siko Yen said with some hesitation. Although he recognized Yi Shiwen's strength, for him, Yi Shiwen could only fight against experts of the half-step law manifestation realm. It was not easy to kill everyone in the Blood Demon army, let alone to kill the heavily protected commander of the Blood Demon army. Believe in him. He can do it, Yi Qianqian said. He is not a person who will stick to old rules. Everybody looked at each other in bewilderment, but they could not rush into the army of blood demons to rescue Yi Shiwen at this moment. Otherwise, not to mention rescuing Yi Shiwen, they might even be trapped in the army themselves. Yi Shiwen's figure shuttled through the crowd of blood demons. His speed was extremely fast, like a golden bolt of lightning. Sword chi was spewing out from all over his body. His entire person was like an ancient golden sword. Wherever he passed, the entire world would be torn apart. Not to mention those blood demons, they could not stop Yi Shiwen's footsteps at all. The surging vitality in his body had attracted the attention of countless blood demons. Although they were not as intelligent as the blood demon commanders, their instincts were telling them to invest in him. If they could devour Yi Shiwen, their cultivation would soar by leaps and bounds. They would have hundreds of years' worth of cultivation. In any case, Yi Shiwen had become a delicious piece of cake in their eyes, or rather, a great tonic. Yi Shiwen's qi and blood made him look like a giant light bulb of several kilowatts. Countless blood demons began to lunge at him. However, although they regarded Yi Shiwen as a tonic, they were also tonics in Yi Shiwen's eyes. Now that Yemo wanted to make a breakthrough and become an Earth-level celestial device, he needed a huge amount of flesh and blood. These blood demons and blood fiends happened to be the great tonic that came to his door. Tianyuan mirror was only used for recovery. For example, if a person wanted to grow from a child to an adult, it would take at least 10 or 20 years. But if it was just to restore a weak adult to a healthy level, it would not take that long. It might only take a few days, or even 10 days, which was far less than the time needed for a child to grow into an adult. Tianyuan mirror was like an injured adult. Its own level had already reached a very high level. Now, what it needed was a lot of supplements. There would not be any bottlenecks in the realm. As long as it accumulated enough energy, it would be able to make continuous breakthroughs. It was even faster than Yi Shiwen's improvement speed. Yi Shiwen did not hesitate. His body constantly spewed out sword aura, which condensed into sword aura. These approaching blood demons were minced into pieces, and then they were swept away by Tianyuan mirror. Even such a high frequency of killing awakened Yemo, who was silent in retreat. He thought that Yi Shiwen was doing something. But after knowing Yi Shiwen's plan, he didn't care about anything and continued to retreat directly. For him, these things did not mean to continue to pay attention to. Soon, Yi Shiwen encountered the first commander of this blood demon. Under the protection of layers of blood demons, the blood demon looked at Yi Shiwen with cruel eyes. This was a terrifying expert who had reached the peak of half-step law manifestation realm late. At this time, it looked at Yi Shiwen greedily. Behind it was like a small city. In the center of the city, there was a throne on the highest level. The entire small city was floating in the air, and it was filled with a lot of wealth that this blood demon commander had collected over the years. It was safer to put it in the army. If it could be raided here, then its wealth would be useless no matter where it was. He had long since noticed this hot-blooded human. It was just that the various commanders had an agreement that they would not snatch him from him. It was up to him to decide whose territory he would go to. He didn't expect that this brat would actually come to his territory. He immediately commanded the blood demons to surround and kill him. Ha ha ha, kid, you are really courting death. I didn't expect that you would come to my territory. This is destined to be my fortune. I will swallow you alive, and then increase my power for hundreds of years out of thin air. I will break into the law manifestation realm in one fell swoop, said the blood demon commander with a strange smile. This blood demon commander was rather intelligent. It was on a completely different level compared to the blood demon commander in the passageway. It might have some other fortune. This was not surprising. Even the most stupid clan would have one or two who had a fortuitous encounter. It was not too strange to have a fortune. You want to treat me as your prey? It's just that I don't know who the real prey is. Yi Shiwen sneered. In his opinion, this blood demon commander was simply seeking its own death. Without saying a word, Yi Shiwen rushed directly into the blood demons. The blood demons tried to stop Yi Shiwen's footsteps, but how could they be Yi Shiwen's opponent? Yi Shiwen's divinity was like golden lightning, flashing directly. Every time it flickered, he would get closer to the blood demon commander. Clang! The sword light was unsheathed, directly beheading a half-step law manifestation realm late blood demon. This blood demon was obviously the best among the blood demon commander's subordinates, but it was not Yi Shiwen's opponent at all. It couldn't even block Yi Shiwen's sword. At this time, the blood demon commander finally began to take Yi Shiwen seriously. It had never seen such a ferocious expert. Yi Shiwen seemed to be just at the transcendent realm 9th level, but even the half-step law manifestation realm late expert was not his opponent. This was very terrifying. It seemed that Yi Shiwen was not an ordinary figure. At this time, it finally couldn't help but make a move. A terrifying blood claw tore through the sky, tearing towards Yi Shiwen's head. You want to deal with me with such insignificant skills? Yi Shiwen's sword stabbed out. It was fast and urgent, seemingly ordinary. However, it pierced through the sky in an instant, appearing in front of the blood claw. Yi Shiwen's speed was faster than Yi Shiwen's. Slash! Yi Shiwen's sword light directly tore a huge wound on the blood claw. Blood instantly splashed out, and the blood claw was almost chopped off by Yi Shiwen on the spot. The proud blood demon commander screamed again and again. Its terrifying face had turned completely hideous. It had been injured by Yi Shiwen. It didn't expect Yi Shiwen to be so ferocious that he could severely injure it. Just one slash made it completely understand that this human warrior who dared to rush into the blood demon horde was not a fool. He was truly skilled and courageous. Such a person was the most difficult to provoke. However, there was no other way at this time. Because even if it wanted to retreat at this time, Yi Shiwen would not let it go. Almost at the moment when it withdrew its blood claw, Yi Shiwen's sword had already arrived. It fell on the body of the blood demon commander like lightning. Puff! The blood demon commander was immediately slashed in half. Blood splashed out, and then it was immediately absorbed by Tianyuan mirror. It was killed by Yi Shiwen before it could react. The wealth in that small city also fell into Yi Shiwen's hands all at once. Yi Shiwen didn't have time to carefully count it. There were as many as 3 bloodstone veins of 10 million level. In other words, Yi Shiwen had an additional 30 million bloodstones. Yi Shiwen almost shouted excitedly to the sky. He had made a fortune. Even for him at present, 30 million was still a huge fortune. One must know that he only had 60 million bloodstones now. With the addition of these 30 million bloodstones, he would almost be able to break 100 million. In addition to these bloodstones, there were many special treasures that only grew in the blood realm. This was only one blood demon commander, and the other blood demon commanders weren't included. So, one could well imagine why Yishiwen was so excited. Without the command of this blood demon commander, the rest of the blood demons also fled in panic. They didn't dare to stop Yishiwen's footsteps at all. At this time, Jian Wushuang and the others were a little dumbfounded because they all saw a large part of the blood demon army suddenly collapse. In the eyes of these fearless blood demons, there was no fear at all. Under the suppression of the blood demon commander, they were like robots, rushing forward wave after wave. It was impossible for them to collapse. Then there was only one possibility. Yishiwen, who was in the blood demon army, had successfully killed a blood demon commander. This was the only possibility. Otherwise, how could those blood demons collapse? He really succeeded, Siko Hao said in disbelief. Chapter 1081. He really succeeded, Siko Hao said in disbelief. Among these people, he was the most shocked because he was the least convinced that Yishiwen could do it. Although he did not hate Yishiwen, and they were on good terms, it had nothing to do with whether he was confident in his strength or not. He was also very confident in himself. Many times, he was even called narcissistic by a few others. However, he was not sure that he could retreat unscathed from the blood demon army, let alone kill the blood demon commander. It was not because they were not as strong as the blood demon commander, but because the blood demon commander was surrounded by the blood demon army, which was protected by countless blood demon soldiers who knew when to advance and when to retreat. Under such circumstances, it was practically impossible for them to kill the blood demon commander. They might be exhausted to death before they could reach the blood demon commander. He was not like Yishiwen, who had the Phoenix regeneration technique to protect himself, and could maintain his peak combat state at any time. Therefore, as long as he was not seriously injured at once, he was not afraid of being besieged at all. However, was there any blood demon that could seriously injure him at once? Absolutely not. Therefore, he was not afraid at all and directly rushed into the blood demon army. Yishiwen, who had obtained great benefits from the blood demon commander, immediately began to search for other blood demon commanders without any hesitation. When he just rushed in, he could feel that there was definitely more than one blood demon commander among them. The thoughts he sensed all proved this point. Moreover, only a part of the blood demon army had dispersed after Yishiwen had killed this blood demon commander. The vast majority of the blood demon army hadn't moved. This indicated that they belonged to other blood demon commanders. They didn't belong to the blood demon commander that he had killed. He immediately chased after the blood demon commander without any hesitation. He chased into the blood demon army and launched another massacre. Yishiwen's killing efficiency was terrifyingly high when he fully unleashed his strength. Wherever he went, blood flowed like a river. The blood demons were not his match at all. Whoosh! A bloody claw directly fell from the sky, trying to kill Yishiwen, who was moving at high speed. It was one of the blood demon commanders who did not like Yishiwen and directly attacked. Just nice, it saves me the trouble of finding it, Yishiwen sneered. Although he was very sensitive to auras, it was useless no matter how sensitive he was. In the midst of so many chaotic auras, it was not easy to judge, because the auras of these blood demons were almost the same, and there were too many of them. Right now, Yishiwen felt like a radar screen, densely packed with dots. It wasn't easy to find the hidden blood demon commander, but when the blood demon commander made a move, it was suddenly exposed. Shio! Yishiwen's figure turned into a mass of golden light and disappeared. That bloody claw ripped open the place where Yishiwen had just been standing. Even several nearby blood demons were killed by the terrifying palm wind. Eh? Where did it go? In the depths of the blood demon horde, an incomparably powerful blood demon commander asked in confusion. This was an extremely muscular blood demon commander. Countless laws were exposed on his body, entangling with each other. However, when he had just reacted, a cold light fell from the sky, and an iron sword appeared in the void, directly piercing the head of this blood demon commander. Slash! When the iron sword tore through the sky, it made a sharp piercing sound. Found you! The blood demon commander immediately felt a cold light sweep over his body. He was shocked and hurriedly condensed countless talismans, forming a huge wall of blood in the sky above him, which directly collided with the iron sword in the air. Bang! With a terrifying collision, the talismans that he condensed were smashed into pieces on the spot by the sword aura, unable to block Yishiwen's iron sword at all. Then, a terrifying force directly penetrated the top of his head. Boom! This blood demon commander's head exploded on the spot, and his spirit was smashed into pieces in an instant. Then, his body, along with all the wealth in his small city, were collected by Yishiwen. The moment he made his move, he was locked on by Yishiwen. Therefore, he unleashed his speed to the extreme, and in an instant, he had already pounced on the blood demon commander. That blood demon commander probably did not expect Yishiwen to have such terrifying speed, and he was killed before he could even react. From the moment he made his move to the moment he died at Yishiwen's hands, not even 10 breaths had passed. Everything seemed so terrifying. As soon as this blood demon commander died, large swathes of blood demons began to collapse, completely routed. At this time, everyone who was struggling to break away from the blood demon horde was stunned again. He killed another one! At this time, Sikorin felt a little numb. Yishiwen's strength was really unbelievably strong, far beyond his imagination. Or could it be that he was very good at group battles? Otherwise, how could he be so terrifying, killing blood demon commanders one after another? Big Brother Yi is really amazing! Meow Cece pouted, holding a giant sword that was even taller than her in her hands, and directly chopped a blood demon into pieces. If she was seen by Yishiwen at this time, she would probably not be able to escape the title of a violent Lolita. This giant sword that was even taller than her was waved in her hands as if it were weightless. Every slash of the sword could kill a large group of blood demons who were half a step into the Transcendence realm. At this time, Gao Xian also nodded. No matter what method he used, whether it was a cheap trick or not, there was one thing that was true: Yishiwen's strength was indeed far beyond their imagination. Their previous estimation of Yishiwen now seemed to be a complete mistake and a joke. At this time, it was not that Yishiwen wanted to drag them down, but rather, they faintly felt that they were dragging Yishiwen down. Jian Wushuang did not feel anything, but continued to kill blood demons in an attempt to share some of the pressure with Yishiwen. Among these people, Yi Qianqian seemed to be the most relaxed, because her strength was also the weakest. She was only in the legendary Great Perfection realm, and there was still a long way to go before she could reach the semi-sage realm, let alone fight against these blood demons who were half a step into the Transcendence realm. Under the protection of the 4 people, she was the one with the highest priority. Her face was indifferent, as if the killing in front of her had nothing to do with her. Among the group of blood demons, Yishiwen began to count the harvest. This blood demon commander was obviously much stronger than the previous one, and it also had more wealth. There were 4 bloodstone mineral veins that were worth tens of millions, which meant about 40 million bloodstones. Obviously, this was not their accumulation. Perhaps it was the accumulation of countless generations of blood demon commanders, or even the wealth of the previous blood demon commander that they had killed. But now, all of this had become Yishiwen's property. Yishiwen's ferocity might have frightened these blood demon commanders, whose spiritual wisdom was far above that of an ordinary blood demon. They didn't dare to act blindly without thinking. The 2 blood demon commanders who had been killed weren't their companions. They were their competitors. They didn't have any intention to avenge them. However, they did not want to attack, but it did not mean that Yishiwen intended to let them go. Yishuan did not expect that these blood demon commanders would have so much wealth, and he did not know how many years they had accumulated it. If he killed all of them, he would become rich overnight. How could Yishuan let go of such a good opportunity? Yishuan continued to search among the blood demons, constantly killing them. Wherever he went, the blood demons would collapse. There was no existence that could stop him at all. Yishuan was so terrifying when he went all out. The few people outside were also dumbfounded. Although they could not see the specific situation, they could still see the overall situation of the blood demon army collapsing. They could almost determine where Yishuan had gone from the place where the blood demon army had collapsed. Seeing Yishuan's bravery, the little bit of worry in their hearts was suddenly thrown away, and there was nothing to worry about. "Everyone, come on! We have so many people, we can't be outdone by Yishuan." At this time, Gao Xian roared and joined the battle again. With Yishuan's efficiency of slaughtering, not to mention getting rid of the Blood Demon Legion, it was a bit unrealistic to annihilate the entire Blood Demon Legion. After all, with so many blood demons, it would be the most troublesome if they fled separately. Gao Xian might not be able to catch up with them at all. However, if it was only a single blood demon legion, it would be possible for him to defeat it. "Attack! This human actually wants to kill all of us. He's greedy like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. We must teach him a lesson." Yes. If this person doesn't die, we won't be able to eat and sleep in peace. Even we may become the souls of the dead in his hands. And this person is so powerful. He has such terrifying combat power at the Transcendent Realm 9th level. In terms of talent, I have never seen such a terrifying person. If I can devour his flesh and blood, my cultivation will definitely skyrocket. At this time, there was a sudden increase in spiritual sense communication in the sky. It seemed that these blood demon commanders were about to attack. If they didn't, they might be defeated by Yishuan one by one. By then, they would have nowhere to cry even if they wanted to. Whether it was for the sake of survival, or to devour Yishuan, increase his power, and plunder his wealth, killing Yishuan had become an inevitable thing. "Attack! Set up the array!" Chapter 1082. Go set up the formation! With a loud shout, a formation immediately enveloped Yishuan. 5 powerful figures appeared beside Yishuan. Each of them was an outstanding figure in the half-step transcendence realm. Each of them could easily defeat other half-step transcendence realm experts. At this time, they stood around Yishuan, stimulated the jinyuan of their whole body, and brought out a big killing formation to completely envelop Yishuan. This meant that they wanted to completely strangle Yishuan inside. At this time, Yishuan only felt that the wind was rising and the clouds were surging. Suddenly, everything around him turned blood red. He couldn't see anything else. Countless blood energies in the sky were being absorbed. Then, they turned into terrifying weapons and rushed towards Yishuan. These arrays wanted to kill Yishuan with the help of the power of heaven and earth. However, Yishuan was not someone who would just sit and wait for death. He's dead now. When the time comes, he'll have to obediently become a piece of meat by my mouth. TSK, I want to eat his heart and liver. That's the most delicious part of a human body. These blood demon commanders saw that Yishuan was enveloped by the formation and immediately revealed cruel expressions. In their opinion, Yishuan was already dead. It was only a matter of time before he died. Therefore, at this time, they had already begun to discuss how to dismember Yishuan's body. "Oh no, Yishuan is besieged!" Miao Sisi shouted after slashing a blood demon away. Although the crowd could not see what was happening, they could at least feel the presence of qi. The blood demon commanders who had been hiding all this time had unexpectedly all come out in one breath. Moreover, they were besieging Yishuan. Everyone immediately became anxious. If it was a one-on-one fight, they would still be very confident in Yishuan. Just like before, Yishuan alone killed 2 blood demon armies and caused them to collapse. However, if 5 of them joined forces, it would be a different story. They could not judge Yi Shiwen by their previous assumptions. At this time, Gao Xian said, "We can't just stand by and watch. We have to save him." He looked at the others to see if they had any objections. "I have no objections. I don't have the tradition of abandoning my comrades," Si Kuoyan said. "Save him," Jian Wushuang said without hesitation. As for Yi Qianqian, no one paid attention to her. In their opinion, Yi Qianqian should be the first one to agree. In fact, Yi Qianqian didn't have any objection. "Kill!" They roared and charged into the army of the blood demon beasts. "Yi Shiwen, you must persist until we arrive." Although the danger of charging into the frenzied army of blood demons was self-evident, the few of them did not think too much and simply rushed in. "Want to kill me? Go to hell!" Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. At this time, innumerable Jinyuan crazily combusted from his body, and at the same time, innumerable spirit crystals in Tianyuan mirror were also combusted, and then instilled into Yi Shiwen's body to supplement the consumption of Jinyuan. His movements were fast to the extreme. The long sword that he swung left behind a series of afterimages in the void. Every sword light could cut apart a blood-colored energy that was blasting towards him. At this moment, Yi Shiwen could no longer see heaven and earth. He couldn't see the things outside the great formation around him. He couldn't even see the 5 blood demons that were half a step into the law phase realm. But so what if he could not see them? Yi Shiwen did not care at all. As long as he tore this broken formation apart, everything would return to normal. Yi Shiwen was already almost invincible in the half-step transcendence realm. After combusting his Jinyuan crazily, the combat power that erupted from him was simply terrifying. He drew out the earth-level longsword and instantly merged with the entire iron sword. He turned into a sword light and instantly flew into the sky. Boom! Yi Shiwen quickly hit the edge of the entire formation and was bounced back by the power of the formation. "Who are you? How dare you stop me?" Yi Shiwen shouted, and the long sword in his hand directly burst out a terrifying sword light. The sword light pierced through the sky and directly tore a huge crack in the formation. The situation outside suddenly fell into Yi Shiwen's eyes. It was no longer the original blood-red situation. "Oh no, he is coming out!" At this time, the few blood demon commanders shouted one after another. They discovered Yi Shiwen's unusual movement. In their opinion, this was incredible. Even a law manifestation master might find it difficult to break free from the great formation that they had set up. If it was an expert at the late stage of the half-step transcendence realm, it would be impossible to break free no matter how powerful he was. They relied on this set of formation to kill in all directions and annihilate more and more blood demon tribes, making them their own subordinates. However, they did not expect that Yi Shiwen's side would fail. Yi Shiwen actually killed his way out and tore a huge crack in the formation. "Cover up the crack!" The few blood demons began to pinch the law almost at the same time, gathering the blood chi between heaven and earth, and began to repair the entire crack in the entire formation. "It's a little too late to repair it at this time." Accompanied by this cold voice, a figure instantly jumped out of the crack. The figure was like a sword light, directly pouncing in front of the nearest blood demon commander. The sword light flashed, cutting the vast sky. "No, how did you do it? This is impossible. I don't want to die." The blood demon commander was frightened. He did not expect that Yi Shiwen could come out. He was so frightened that he began to speak incoherently. Unfortunately, Yi Shiwen would not be polite to him. He directly slashed with his sword. Puff! A flower of blood flashed, and the blood demon commander was beheaded on the spot. Another group of blood demons completely collapsed. Without the control of the blood demon commander, these blood demons directly turned around and left. At this time, the other remaining blood demon commanders could do nothing. Although these blood demon commanders were allies when dealing with Yi Shiwen, they were basically the most direct competitors in normal times. Although these blood demon commanders marched together, in fact, they were the most guarded against each other, and did not allow others to touch their subordinates. Therefore, at this time, these blood demons collapsed, and they could not do anything at all. Quickly stop him! I want him to die without a burial place! At this time, the blood demon commanders had no other choice but to mobilize their subordinates and began to encircle Yishiwen. They arranged their troops and approached Yishiwen in a marching formation. They wanted to strangle Yishiwen to death with the power of the array formation. Even a top master would be very helpless when facing such an army. There was no way to deal with it. The reason was very simple. Because there were too many of them, and they were different from ordinary scattered soldiers. They knew how to borrow the power of the array formation, and the array formation often borrowed the power of the heavenly way. It was equivalent to using the power of one person to fight against the power of the heavenly way. The result was obvious. One of the important reasons was that many masters had died in front of the array formation. However, these people obviously did not include Yishiwen. Yishiwen moved with his sword and quickly broke into the array formation. Wherever his sword light passed, the array formation collapsed one after another. There was no way to stop Yishiwen at all. Even they themselves did not understand why they collapsed. Yishiwen only used a sword and killed one person, and the array formation collapsed on the spot. Playing with this kind of array formation in front of me is really child's play. You are displaying your slight skill in front of an expert. Yishiwen sneered. He used to stay in the library of Yuan sect for a long time and read all kinds of military books. Many of them were written by military experts. During that time, Yishiwen almost read all the books in the library. Moreover, he did not just read them once. He also used the mysterious space to integrate all kinds of knowledge. It could be said that not only in military affairs, but also in politics, economy, and other aspects. He could be called a Grand Master in all aspects. These array formations were powerful, but in Yishiwen's eyes, they were full of flaws. He did not pay attention to them at all. It was not that he had not studied the array formations that were 100 or 1,000 times more complicated than this. He was absolutely clear about them. Although these blood demons had some spiritual wisdom, how could they be compared with the wisdom of human war? For him, these array formations were too rough. He could see the weaknesses and flaws at a glance. There was no problem at all. As long as he killed the most important person, then the entire array would immediately collapse. There was no possibility of any hindrance to Yishiwen. Although there were layers of array formations blocking him, for Yishiwen, it was just like walking on flat ground. In an instant, he completely broke through and rushed to the front of a blood demon commander. Puchi! The blood demon commander was not a match for Yishiwen at all. He was beheaded on the spot and turned into a pool of blood. The Tianyuan mirror swept into it and took away all his wealth. Yishiwen's figure was extremely fast. He did not stop and began to rush towards the remaining 3 blood demon commanders. This man is cruel. We must join forces, otherwise we will be defeated by him one by one. At this time, one of the blood demon commanders roared. The other 2 blood demon commanders also agreed. The 3 blood demon commanders rushed towards Yishiwen. The 3 experts of half-step law phase late directly blasted out a mighty attack. The terrifying power vibrated in the attack and rushed towards Yishiwen. Just in time! Yishiwen laughed loudly. It was the best that they did not leave. Otherwise, he would have to chase and kill them one by one. That would be troublesome. 3 swords in one! Buried heaven's sword! Buried earth's sword! Buried person's sword! Yishiwen slashed out 3 terrifying sword lights. They instantly condensed into a huge Guan Gu sword and shot out. Boom! It was as if the sky was pierced through. All the attacks of the 3 blood demon commanders were completely broken. Their bodies were also screamed and twisted into pieces by the sword lights. Chapter 1083. These blood demon commanders at the peak of the half-step to law manifestation realm were killed by Yishiwen's sword in an instant. There was not the slightest chance of survival. Yi Shiwen's 3-in-1 move could be said to be incomparable to the previous one. After his upgrade and improvement, it had definitely reached the peak of the Earth rank. In other words, even a Law Manifestation Realm expert could be killed with one blow, let alone these half-step to Law Manifestation Realm blood demons. These blood demons were actually much weaker than warriors of the same level. Although they did not know how these blood demons were raised, their physical qualities were much stronger than warriors of the same level. However, it was only in terms of physical qualities. In terms of other comprehensive qualities, they were much worse than warriors of the same level. The biggest difference was that they did not know martial arts, but these warriors did. The martial arts that these warriors knew could stimulate their greatest advantage. Many of these blood demons only knew how to use their physical advantages, so they were not a match for warriors of the same level at all. The only thing they could rely on was their huge numbers. Even if these blood demon commanders had spiritual wisdom and knew some martial arts, there was no way they could compare with these geniuses. These people were heirs with tens of thousands of years or even hundreds of thousands of years of heritage. The martial arts that they knew could be said to be diverse and powerful, far beyond ordinary people's imagination. This was also why, although Jian Wushuang and the others had a headache for these blood demons, it was only a headache. It was because these blood demons did not know martial arts, so they did not pose too much of a threat. As long as they were not surrounded, it was not a big deal at all. The greed of these blood demons finally met their end. They were directly killed by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen did not change much. He just collected their wealth. At this time, Jian Wushuang and the others had just arrived. They were stunned to see the scene of Yi Shiwen killing 3 blood demon commanders at the peak of the half-step to Law Manifestation Realm with one move. For them, this was too shocking. Even if these blood demon commanders were weak, they were still at the peak of the half-step to Law Manifestation Realm. They were the best in this realm. How could 3 of them be killed with one move? Could this sword be his trump card? To think that it would be so powerful. Just thinking about it made everyone's scalp go numb. That sword qi overflowed in all directions, directly crushing countless blood qi, forming a majestic momentum. In particular, Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up. In his opinion, although Yi Shiwen was not a sword cultivator, his sword principle cultivation was far beyond that of the sword cultivators he knew. He felt that it was a pity. If such a talented person focused on cultivating the way of the sword, his future achievements would be limitless. He might even reach the legendary realm. However, what he didn't know was that Yi Shiwen possessed a mysterious space. He could deduce any martial technique inside it. Therefore, innate talent wasn't important to him. He could display amazing innate talent in Sword Dao, but he could also display amazing innate talent in Saber Dao, Boxing Dao, and other martial arts. This wasn't a problem for him. However, when he saw Yi Shiwen's sword move, he sighed slightly and realized something. Yi Shiwen counted the wealth he had seized. There were as many as 15 tens of millions of bloodstone mineral veins. In other words, as many as 150 million bloodstones were now in Yi Shiwen's hands. In addition to the 90 million bloodstones from before, Yi Shiwen now had 240 million bloodstones. Not to mention a large number of heaven and earth treasures that only grew in the blood world. Although Yi Shiwen didn't know the names of many of them, it didn't matter. There would always be people who knew. After all, the blood world had been open for countless years. The heaven and earth treasures that grew in the blood world had long been known to the outside world. When he roughly counted his wealth, he realized that Jian Wushuang and the others had already rushed to the vicinity of this place. "Why did you guys rush in?" Yi Shiwen asked curiously. He naturally dared to rush in because he was confident. Why did these people rush in together? "I'm just worried that you'll be besieged by a few blood demon commanders. But from the looks of it, it doesn't seem necessary. Perhaps the blood demon commanders are nothing to you," Miao Sisi said with a pout. Yi Shiwen was startled. The situation just now seemed very dangerous from the outside. After all, being surrounded by 5 blood demon commanders at the peak of the late Law Manifestation Realm was very dangerous in the eyes of ordinary people. Suddenly, Yishuan felt warm in his heart. Although he knew that it was very dangerous, but these people still rushed in to save him. Although this danger didn't exist for him, but he still felt grateful for their kindness. Yishuan was a sentimental person. He would treat others how they treated him. Although he didn't say anything at this time, he had officially recognized these people in his heart, just like how he recognized Bai Hanmo, Yao Qian, and others in the past. What was a friend? This was a friend. At the critical moment, they would come to save you regardless of any danger. That was a friend. These are the things I seized from these blood demon commanders. Divide them among yourselves. Yishuan took out the bloodstones and heavenly treasures that he had seized from the body of the blood demon commander. For him, this meant that he had thoroughly recognized these people as his friends. What are you talking about? You risked your life and worked hard to seize these things. How can we divide them among ourselves? Gao Xian said. Besides, there should be a lot of other wealth here. If we want it, we will naturally seize it ourselves. That's right, that's right. I am very proud. I will not lose to you. I will eliminate these evildoers myself. Sai Qian nodded and said, Yeah, didn't we come here to seize it ourselves? You should keep yours. Miao Sisi said. Although Jian Wushuang didn't say anything, he obviously had the same idea. Yi Qianqian didn't seem to care at all. At this time, Yishuan only smiled and said, I was too reckless. Haha, that's right. There are so many fortuitous encounters here. Why would I be afraid of not obtaining wealth? Everyone nodded. They were all exceptionally proud and peerless geniuses. To be able to cultivate to such a level in such a short period of time, which one of them wasn't a genius? Naturally, they had their own pride. They would not allow this kind of activity that was akin to sharing the fruits of charity. As they said, if they wanted to obtain something, they should pursue it themselves. But if you didn't tell me, I wouldn't have known that these blood demon commanders had so much wealth on them. TSK, just looking at it makes me green with envy. Sai Qian said exaggeratedly. I originally thought that these blood demons were creatures without any intelligence, so it was impossible for them to accumulate any wealth. I didn't expect them to have so much. What's so strange about it? No matter what kind of race they are, no matter how intelligent they are, hoarding wealth is an instinct. It has nothing to do with race. It's just a difference in the amount of wealth. Gao Xian said. Haha, then I'm going to make a fortune. Sai Qian immediately flew out and rushed towards the other blood demon armies. In this vast and boundless pocket world, there were definitely more than 1 or 2 blood demon armies or blood fiend tribes like this. At this time, in the eyes of these people, they had all become a moving treasury of wealth. However, they were only able to achieve this because of a terrifying freak like Yishuan. When other exploration teams encountered the blood demon army or the blood fiend tribe, apart from those who were lucky enough to discover them at the very beginning and avoid them, most of them ran into them head-on. Some of the more powerful experts were able to kill their way out, but most of them lost their lives and became the food of the blood demon army or the blood fiend army. At this time, many exploration teams had no choice but to join forces in 2s and 3s in order to break through this area, lest they were devoured by the blood demon armies or blood fiend tribes. Of course, there were also tyrannical teams like Yishuan and the others who directly rushed in and killed the blood fiends or blood demon commanders. The rest of the blood fiends or blood demons collapsed on the spot. On the one hand, the crisis of being besieged was resolved. On the other hand, they also swept away a large amount of wealth. This also caused many people to join forces and start hunting the experts of the blood fiends and blood demon armies. This turned the situation upside down on the spot. The warriors of various clans who were aroused with greed suddenly became the hunters. The change in status happened in an instant. Before the experts of the blood fiends and blood demons figured out what was going on, nearly half of the blood fiends and blood demons had been annihilated. Yishuan, Jian Wushuang, and the others were also mixed in with these people, constantly killing the leaders of the blood fiends and blood demons. However, Yi Shiwen did not rob all the leaders. Basically, everyone got one each. In this way, after slaughtering 5 or 6 blood demon armies or blood fiend tribes, Yi Shiwen's bloodstones soared to more than 200 million. With Yi Shiwen leading the way, everyone's hunting operation was very smooth. He had just killed the last blood demon commander when all the other blood demons began to disperse. They screamed and fled in all directions. However, before everyone could rejoice, they heard a cold voice coming from the sky. Jian Wushuang, TSK, I didn't expect to see you here. It seems that you have gained a lot. Chapter 1084. However, before everyone could rejoice, they heard a cold voice coming from the sky. Unparalleled sword, TSK, I didn't expect to see you here. It seems that you have gained a lot of things. Accompanied by this seemingly complimentary but actually sarcastic voice, a figure appeared in the air. It was a square-faced man in a yellow robe. He had a strong body and a somewhat fierce face. However, it was somewhat strange that there was a huge scar on his face, directly across from one side of his face to the other. The flesh inside was turned out, which looked unusually ferocious and terrifying. Yi Shiwen felt a little strange. He did not know what this person was going to do. In fact, at their level of cultivation, even if they did not have a divine skill like Phoenix regeneration technique to protect their body, it was not a problem to recover 1 or 2 scars. However, this person left this scar, which was a bit strange. Do you remember this scar, unparalleled sword? The square-faced, yellow-robed man pointed at the long and narrow scar on his face like a centipede. 2 months have passed, but I still remember your sword move. TSK, it's really accurate. Just a little bit more and my head would have been chopped into 2 halves by you. Although this person's words seemed very calm, but Yi Shiwen could feel that kind of cold killing intention, which made people shudder with fear. Huang Weishan, how come it's you? Miao Sisi exclaimed. She did not expect it to be this person in front of her. Miao Sisi, TSK, you are still so beautiful. It doesn't matter, I will let you know what it means to live a life worse than death. I will kill you in the end. When I am tired of playing with you, I will squeeze your breasts. TSK, that feeling must be great. The square-faced man in a yellow robe, Huang Weishan, squinted his eyes and pretended to be intoxicated. However, with the centipede-like scar on his face, he looked even more ferocious. A look of disgust suddenly appeared on Miao Sisi's face. Even Yi Qianqian's expression was somewhat disgusted. You pervert! Miao Sisi said fiercely. Pervert, TSK, I like this name. Jia, introduce to me, who is this beauty? At this moment, Huang Weishan's gaze landed on Yi Qianqian. His eyes were filled with lust as he sized her up from head to toe. It was as though he could strip her naked with just his gaze alone. She's actually a female slave with temperament. I like it. What I like the most is to train such a dignified woman into the most lascivious sex slave. Yi Qianqian listened to his words and revealed a look of disgust. If she was still in her peak condition, she would have killed this damned pervert long ago. Damn it! Why is it this guy? I've encountered this guy again. Gao Xian's expression suddenly became dignified. It was obvious that Huang Weishan, who was standing in front of him, gave him a huge amount of pressure. His real yuan was unconsciously gushing out, as if he was facing an extremely dangerous poisonous snake. Huang Weishan, I think you've never changed. Haven't you suffered enough? How dare you come here alone? Have you forgotten what happened last time? Saika Hao said in a loud voice. The sword on your head didn't take your life, so now you've come to die again. Saika Hao could be said to be vicious as he pointed at Huang Weishan's huge scar. As expected, the muscles on Huang Weishan's face twitched. It was obvious that he was extremely angry. As a god's favored one, when had he ever been injured so badly? Moreover, it was a few people that he had never thought highly of. However, the result was that he was plotted against, and his head was almost cut in half. If he hadn't released the secret skill at all costs, he would have been dead by now. He had underestimated Jian Wuxuang. Therefore, he wanted to keep this scar as a reminder of how he was injured and constantly remind himself to take revenge. Only by killing Jian Wuxuang would he be able to erase this huge scar. TSK, do you think I came here alone? Huang Weishan sneered and said. Come out and let them see me. Ha ha ha, Huang Weishan, so you were injured by this sword cultivator? How useless. TSK, this is all you've got. However, he heard a wanton mocking laugh. A middle-aged man with a medium build walked out of the void. As soon as this middle-aged man appeared, he started to mock Huang Weishan without any scruples. How Hongguang, I've said it before, this was just an accident. Because of this accident, I was plotted against by this brat. Huang Weishan said angrily as he looked at the middle-aged man, Hao Hongguang, with an unfriendly gaze. TSK, no matter what you say, you can't change the fact that your head was almost cut off by this brat. Hao Hongguang continued to ridicule as if he didn't care about Huang Weishan's threat. Humph, this time, I'm going to twist off their heads and kick them like a ball, Huang Weishan said angrily. Old son, come out, there's no need to hide anymore, Huang Weishan said towards the void. After saying this, another terrifying expert appeared. This was a slightly skinny man. His face looked a bit old, and his expression was exceptionally cold. At this time, he was staring coldly at Yi Shiwen and the others. Gao Xian and the others were startled to see that there were still people hiding nearby. The most important thing was that they didn't even notice this. Whether it was Huang Weishan, Hao Hongguang, or Old Sun, none of them had noticed this. When Huang Weishan first appeared, it was still possible. However, they were too excited after the battle and did not notice him. After that, when they became vigilant, they still did not notice the existence of the two people. There was only one possibility: their cultivation was far beyond their imagination. Just Huang Weishan alone had caused them a lot of trouble before, not to mention the two unknown and terrifying experts. At this time, Yi Shiwen also learned from Siko Yan what kind of grievances they had with Huang Weishan through secret voice sending. It all started a long time ago. At that time, they were still experts at half-step Transcendence Realm middle stage when they encountered Huang Weishan, an expert at half-step Transcendence Realm late stage. Huang Weishan fancied Miao Sisi and wanted to kidnap her. Who knew that it would lead to strong resistance from the others? In the end, they went through a bloody battle, but they still couldn't defeat Huang Weishan. At this time, Jian Wuxuang unexpectedly erupted and almost cut off Huang Weishan's head with a sword. However, that was something that happened a few months ago. Everyone originally thought that they wouldn't meet Huang Weishan again. Who would have thought that they would still meet Huang Weishan here? But that wasn't the main point. The main point was that Huang Weishan was actually much more terrifying than before. But then again, they thought that they were only in the half-step Transcendence Realm middle stage. Now, they had stepped into the peak of half-step Transcendence Realm late stage. Not to mention Huang Weishan, who was already in the half-step Transcendence Realm late stage at that time. After a few months, it was hard to imagine how much stronger Huang Weishan had become. Moreover, he brought two teammates who seemed to be no weaker than him. They all had terrifying strength, so it was easy to imagine how much pressure they were under. If it was only Huang Weishan, they could still work together to kill him. Back then, there was a gap between their realms. But now, although there was still a gap in strength, the gap in realms had been closed. But with these two equally terrifying experts, it was easy to imagine that the odds of winning were not high. Huang Weishan, I don't care how you deal with them in the end, but I want half of their wealth, Hao Hongguang sneered and said. He didn't take Huang Weishan's threat seriously. He didn't care what Huang Weishan was thinking. Anyway, in his eyes, Yi Shiwen and the others were nothing more than a moving treasure trove. I want the remaining half, Old Sun said in a cold voice. Huang Weishan gritted his teeth, nodded and said, It's up to you. You can each take half of their wealth. This was the condition that he had promised them, and he didn't intend to go back on his word. Even if he did, these two people were not to be trifled with. This idea had just arisen in his mind, and then he extinguished it. If he really went back on his word, he would probably be hunted down by these two people like a dead dog. The three people seemed to regard Yi Shiwen and the others as dead people. They had actually divided their wealth in front of them, which was simply too much. But unexpectedly, Jian Wushuang and the others didn't refute them. They just looked at them coldly, and even looked a little nervous. Gao Xian, I will take care of the rear. You are responsible for taking them away. The faster, the better. Jian Wushuang finally opened his mouth, but he wanted Gao Xian and the others to step back and let him take care of the rear. Jian Wushuang himself was a sword cultivator. Sword cultivators believed that as long as they had a sword in their hand, they would be able to break all laws with a single sword, and they would advance with indomitable will. But now, Jian Wushuang actually wanted them to retreat, which was obviously a very difficult decision for him. No, how can we leave you alone? At this time, Miao Sisi was the first to stand up and oppose. That's right, how can we leave you alone at this time? Siko Hao also shook his head and said, If you leave now, you will be the best help to me. Even if I am surrounded by them, I will be able to escape unscathed. Jian Wushuang said, You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.